Eric and Yvonne Boltz. What do you want people to understand about who you are and what you're building before they hear anything else?
I guess I'll go first on that. Um, we were very active business people, scientists, engineer in my case, a chemist in Yvonne's case, and very interactive with our world, affecting things and making change and moving forward. And then this injury kind of struck all that down. But what we discovered post, grieving period, because all disability comes with a grieving period, is our ability to affect change in the world to make the world a better place hadn't left, right?
Yeah.
And so I mentioned to you before we got started, there's a quote that kind of drives me, and so I'm going to use that here. It's often misattributed to
Ralph Waldo.
Ralph Waldo Emerson, but it was Bessie Anderson Stanley who wrote a 1911 essay on what is success. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to read the part that really resonates with me. Sure. The part that resonates with me, which is to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded.
Mm.
So, what I'm about now is, anyone with an acquired disability knows that your options, your horizon for what you can do in the world shrinks vastly with disability, right?
Yeah.
Um, I'm fortunate enough that I was old enough when that happened. I'd done a lot of things.
Hmm.
Um, but rather than, like, if I were younger when I was disabled, I would certainly be focused more on how can I do these things in an adaptive manner.
Yeah.
Well, you know, like hand cycling, I do it, but it's not like riding a bike.
Yeah.
It's very different.
Hmm.
But what I can do, though, I do have the ability to help people who are in that grieving period to come up with new ideas for their own life, because we all have to redefine our lives with acquired disability. That's the grieving period, is realizing, okay, I've got to start from square one.
Yeah.
So helping with that, and then creating spaces where people are accepted for what they bring to the table, met where they are,
Hmm.
and then taught new skills, uh, and welcomed into new friendships.
Yeah.
And that's what we kind of focus on at Bolt Strong. And it's amazing. Some days you can feel like, God, it's been such a long week, and I really don't feel like doing this weekend. But once it starts, it's just so fun. I mean,
Yeah.
you're just swept up by it.
Cool. Yeah. You know what? One thing you said is you mentioned that once you become disabled, you're quite your world just kind of shrinks a little bit,
Yeah.
and it's an interesting thought process because in some ways your world opens up, right? Because especially with what you guys are doing with adaptive cooking and stuff like that. Like for me, I was born like this, and it's all I've ever known. But like if the reverse were to happen to me, like where I became able-bodied, I don't know what I would do with my life, right? Like it's interesting.
Well, the way I like to describe it to people is, yes, in a sense, your world shrinks, but the world doesn't pixelate when you zoom in.
Yeah.
So no matter how small the world becomes, it actually is no smaller because it's of infinite resolution.
Right.
It's just you have to recognize the world you're now in.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Yvonne, how about you with that question?
Well, I think that from my perspective, what we're trying to do is create a safe space for community for everybody where they can come in and they know that they are respected, they know that they are cared for, that they're accepted, and that they can participate in everything. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, Eric covered a lot of it. At the end of the day, I will choose kindness over cruelty every time.
Yeah.
And, even if it's something just noting, hey, that shirt looks nice on you,
Mm.
or saying something nice to the cashier at the grocery store, something like that, you don't know what that ripple is going to do.
Yeah.
So when we have a class, if I help somebody use a knife for the first time, I don't know what door that's opened, but it's opened something,
Yeah.
and it's really important. We have kind of a phrase at the farm that one of our farmhands who helped us build the farm during COVID came up with, and it's "We keep it real,"
Mm.
and it starts with respect. And from respect, you have empathy, and with respect and empathy, you acquire acceptance,
Mm.
and with all three of those, you have love.
Yeah. I
And
love that.
so that is we're about love and kindness.
Yeah. That's great. Okay, so for those who don't know you, Is there any added depth? I'm sure there is, but anything else that you want to kind of summarize with who you are and what you're about?
Well, fundamentally, I'm a scientist.
Mm,
So I will tell you that I'm a scientist, and that means I'm always asking why. That means I'm always challenging what my preconceived notions are. In science, you try to prove something wrong.
mm,
I mean, I know most people don't understand that, but in science, you try to prove something wrong, but you're also always learning. That's why science evolves.
yeah,
That's why, you know, what I tell you today might change next year when we
sure.
have more information. But as a scientist, I want to take everything in around me
Mhm.
and use that to come to how I approach the world, how I approach people, to what my conclusions are going to be, and be open to changing them.
Mm, I love that, Eric.
Um, uh, I guess probably that I'm a problem solver first and foremost. I mean, I'm an engineer and scientist by training, and that's what really gets me going is coming up with new ideas, new ways of doing things, whether that's a new device or a new way of helping somebody learn a new skill.
Yeah,
And that's why I love the creative problem solving that we do. I mean, some of the things we've done there, the innovations we've done are fairly obvious, but no one's ever done them before. And you just
yeah,
get into the right environment, and magical things happen like that.
yeah. Cool. Okay, so then how do we know each other?
Well, we met in Albuquerque. We were both
No,
working.
how do
Oh,
we know each other?
how did
Uh,
we know each other?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
We have a mutual friend, Abby Marsh.
Yeah, yeah. So this is the first time we've ever met in person. We were
Yeah.
communicating, of course, before the podcast, but
Hmm.
yeah, that's how we know each other, and I'm super grateful to have you guys on. I'm excited to get into the conversation and what you guys are all about with the farm and adaptive cooking and farming and all that. So, how about you two now? How did you two meet?
Well, we were both working for a small company in Albuquerque, New Mexico,
Mm,
and
okay.
we just
We
became really very good friends. But I'll
we
let you
wound
go.
up working together quite a bit. I was managing a department that developed instrumentation and sensors for scientific applications, predominantly inspecting things like old airplanes to look for things that might be wrong with them.
Mm,
And we were bringing some products to market. One that was quite successful was I won't bore you with it, but was for measuring the porosity of as deposited thin films that they use in things like semiconductors. So
ah,
very geeky thing. But
okay.
we needed somebody to sell it, and my boss, who also happened to be Yvonne's boss, decided that he was going to pull her out of the lab and put her on the road, one man show to do trade shows and whatnot, and sell the stuff that we were developing in my department. So we wound up working quite a bit back then.
Cool.
Mhm.
Okay. And you found yourself in Cincinnati, Ohio. That's interesting.
Well, it's funny. I actually grew up in Cincinnati,
Oh,
and when I left, I was like, I am never coming back. Woo, But life does strange things.
Well, I mean, what happened, quite quite honestly, was the head of the company was a company was owned by an individual. It was a privately held company, one majority shareholder, and he fired my boss, a vice president there,
oh,
who was really the only reason I was there.
hmm,
And there wasn't much future for me in my department without him there being our champion. So I came to Cincinnati
hmm.
for a job and left that company. Um, and it just so happened that a few years later, 4 years later, we needed a vice president of sales, and that's when I hired Yvonne to come back to Cincinnati and do that work.
Interesting. Okay, cool. All right. Um, what's one word you use to describe your relationship?
Partnership.
Definitely partnership, which doesn't quite capture. There are times where, not all the time, but there are times where we're almost like a single organism.
Yeah.
Mhm.
People just it's Yvonne and Eric.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no space between them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's more than symbiotic.
I mean, we shared an office for many years. After we bought the company that we worked for, money was tight,
Hmm.
so we shared an office together, which is not an easy thing for anyone to do, let alone husband and wife, right? But
Mhm.
but we actually thrive in those situations. We work really well together.
Yeah. Yeah, I think some couples are like, yeah, I like to keep the work and personal life separate, and you guys can't really do that, and it sounds like you guys work really well together too, huh?
I think we complement each other's skills. I
Yeah.
mean, Yvonne is a much more gregarious and outgoing person than I am,
Yeah.
and I'm much more like that once I've connected with you.
Ah,
You know,
okay.
but she's a great conduit, for
Yeah.
that. And so, yeah, we work really well together.
So, I'm always interested in like introversion, extroversion. Is it safe to say that Eric, you're more introverted than Yvonne? You?
I'd say he's semi-introverted. He's not quite an introvert.
Yeah,
Um,
but you're more extroverted.
I'm sure that most people would tell you I'm an extrovert.
Yeah.
If
Okay.
I have gone early in my career, I've gone to like a trade show where it was after I left Cincinnati and after I left Albuquerque and came to Cincinnati, I went into a whole new field,
Mm,
and and I was the vice president of what was it?
Product development.
Product development. It was sensor product development, I called it, but it was vice president of development. And they sent me to this trade show in this heat treating industry, which I was utterly new to.
mm,
I didn't know anyone, and I was the only one from the company who went. Well, Yvonne would have handled that situation fine. She's perfectly fine walking up to strangers and introducing herself cold call like that. In fact, that's why we work so well together. Is
mm,
I shy away from that.
yeah.
If I recognize a name and I know a paper they wrote, I feel more comfortable. But just coming up and saying, "Hey, I understand you run the FAA program, and I wanted to talk to you about a funding opportunity," that's not my cup of tea.
But
Yeah.
you have to understand. So also, this is the early 2000s and the 2010s, this kind of stuff, and it's still a very male dominated
Mm,
industry.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
it is a whole lot easier for me to access contacts than for another man because I'm the only woman there.
Uh,
That's it. So I mean, like I'd go to a trade show and have a booth there, and I would at a trade show of let's say 500 people in aviation.
mm,
I will have talked to everyone who was attending.
wow.
Not every other vendor would have been.
Wow.
I will say, having spent all these years watching Yvonne in a professional role, the overwhelming negativity or the negative side effects of being a woman, particularly at the executive level, are obviously the most profound things. But there are these twists
Mm,
where a woman does have a bit of an advantage.
yeah.
But by and large, I've watched her have to battle just so much male-dominated BS.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. And you were saying, well, I think Yvonne, you were saying before the podcast that being disabled, you kind of ran into some turmoil as well.
Oh yeah.
Mm. If we weren't here in studio, where would you be?
Oh, I might be out in the barnyard with the Great Pyrenees that we have that are our livestock guardians.
Okay. Okay. Great. Great Pyrenees. That's a dog?
Yes,
Okay.
they're the big white fluffy
They're amazing.
Okay.
they're livestock guardians, not herding dogs, which I mean I don't need to give you a lecture on it, but a Australian Shepherd is a herding dog. They move flocks.
Yeah.
A Great Pyrenees was bred to embed in the flock and protect on its own against wolves, coyotes, canines.
Okay.
And so we have these two amazing, gorgeous Great Pyrenees who are amazing ambassadors on the farm. They've
Mm,
grown up with a wheelchair. They're gentle giants, unless you're a canine.
yeah.
But Rio is 183 pounds and Tinto's 169 pounds.
Wow. Okay.
So
Do they ever bring you unwanted treats, let's say, from the
they
the
have
field?
they have not, but
Okay.
we hear coyotes all the time
Yeah.
around our house, and we have cameras everywhere. We've never seen one on the property.
Oh.
So what I will guarantee you is every coyote, every fox knows exactly where those two are all the time and are not going to mess with them.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. Um, what's something small that brings you a lot of joy right now?
My seeds are sprouting.
Yay. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite things has always been just, to watch either the sunrise or the early morning after it's risen with a cup of coffee.
Mm,
It's one of my favorite things.
mm.
And now that it's warming up, I can do that outside again.
Okay. Okay. Well, everybody, welcome to the Rolling Forward podcast. It's a podcast of people who keep rolling forward no matter what life throws at them. Real people, real stories, powered by purpose, resilience, and a drive that never ends. I'm Zach Sikora. Spina bifida didn't stop me. It just gave me a better excuse to sit down while I take over the world. Today's funny shirt is, you know what? I can't stand. And then it says, you know what? I can't stand. And then it says punctuation matters. This is a Zach Sikora original. You can find the shirt at rollingforward.printful.me. You can find a whole bunch of other similar themed shirts like this on the rollingforward.printful.me if you want to pick one up. So anyway, let's continue rolling into today's episode. So okay, Eric, I want to get into your disability a little bit and what happened, and just kind of the floor is yours, and then Yvonne, I want to hear your perspective as well. So,
Sure. I guess it would have been sometime around 2012. I had been really focused on career for better part of a decade,
mm,
building a company that we had acquired, um, building a subsidiary overseas, and I had realized I'd really gotten a lot out of shape. I had been years ago rock climber, cyclist, etc. So I decided to get fit again, and took up cycling again. Got in with a group that rides out of Loveland called Gears for Beers,
mm,
and then was eventually recruited by a local team, Zephyr Wheel Sports, which I'm still part of. I'm on the board there, and we do actually have races with hand cycles in them now. But I took up road bike cycling, racing quite seriously for a couple years there. I was doing 40 to 45 races a year, training for
wow,
12,000 miles a year, which is not enough to be at the top level. I mean, the top level cyclists are training 20 to 25 hours a week, but to hold down a job and a marriage and kids and do 12 hours is pretty serious.
mm,
And I used to do Mondays were always a day off, and then I would do my weekday rides. If there wasn't a group ride scheduled, I would just do an after work ride from Madeira, where we lived at the time, down through downtown, and then either back the bike path through Milford or whatever way back to Madeira. And I was coming back this one night through Hyde Park, and as I approached the intersection of Delta and Erie, I was on Erie headed north, and a bus had pulled over to pick up some passengers at the bus stop there. And so I got in the left lane and cleared the intersection. And I was proceeding through the intersection when I heard the bus driver give the bus, some gas. So I turned to make eye contact so he would see where I was, and I was going to come over on him. I didn't want him to come into that right lane.
mm,
Well, I was in the crosswalk on the far side of the intersection, so I cleared it when the woman hit me. She had not seen me. She saw the light turn yellow, and she wanted to make sure she beat the yellow,
oh,
and she didn't see my flashing headlight. The sun was in her eyes because it was behind me. That's why I had the headlight on, but she didn't see me. And so she struck me. I hit her windshield and hood. And in the process of putting a big dent in my head, I broke C3, C4,
oh,
uh, T9, I'm sorry,
T7.
T7 was obliterated, 8 was cracked, and 6 was cracked. So I'm fused from 5 to 9.
mm,
And my diagnosis is a T3 Asia A complete. So basically, the lower half of my pec I can't use.
okay,
I'm from sensory. I'm more like T1 or even higher because I have odd sensation all over my upper left arm and shoulder, like my upper back. If you touch my upper back, I will feel 2 fingers
ah,
side by side. It's weird things like that. Like if you
okay.
touch this scar tissue on my arm, I feel that on my knee.
What?
Weird thing. Yeah, it's just the
Weird.
nerves when they get jumbled up like this, strange things happen. So, yeah, so life changed in an instant. I was never unconscious, but I have no recollection of the impact.
Oh,
I had a camera tail light, and so it videoed. It's actually a tail light designed to capture accidents, and if the bike goes sideways, it records for like an hour and then goes into a dormant mode, so it records the after accident even. And so
wha-
I have that video. I've watched it. I have never listened to it. I don't want to hear what I was saying.
yeah.
But I my first memory after, you know, looking at the bus driver is waking up to the sound of a voice talking, and it's talking to operators, and it's my voice. I'm talking to the CAT scan operators. So the
Oh,
recording device just didn't turn on
oh,
until then. I
well,
was coherent until then. I've done no exercises to try to regain those memories. I have no desire to regain those memories,
right.
but that's how it worked for me. I was lucid and talking and not recording a darn thing.
Wow, that's interesting. So, Y Yvonne, you, oh shoot, I had a question specifically. Have you listened to the audio?
No,
Have you seen the
we watched the video
You did,
together, and it was
okay.
over a year after the accident before we watched it.
Mm, okay,
So,
interesting. And so you have full function of your arms, it seems like?
Mhm.
Okay. And
Yep.
then, you said that when you you have your arm touched, you have feeling in your
Yeah.
knee.
So the way that they diagnose spinal cord injuries is both in terms of sensory and in terms of motor.
Yeah.
So from a sensory perspective, I'm actually a triplegic. So
Okay.
because I have, it affects three limbs
Yeah.
sensory wise, but from a motor perspective, I'm a paraplegic because it only affects my legs. My though I feel things weird on my upper body, I have full use of my shoulders and my arms and my fingers,
Yeah.
which is huge, obviously.
Yeah.
Um,
And you have no feeling in your legs.
I have no um, tactile, real, like legitimate feeling. I
Yeah,
have an
yeah.
abundance of what's called nerve pain,
Phantom,
paresthesia,
yeah.
electrical sensation.
proprioception.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I do have proprioception. Somebody moves your leg, you can kind of tell what's going on by the way it kind of translates through your bone structure.
Sure, yeah.
But in terms of actual tactile feeling, I don't have any below my chest.
Sure, sure. Interesting, okay.
And I don't have any core function, so I can't. I can balance sitting straight up with no arms on a chair, but I am balancing.
Right,
I like
right.
to describe it. It's like if you had a stack of like uh,
Teacups.
teacups or teacup saucers, and you're trying to balance it
Yeah,
over.
yeah.
That's kind of like a spinal cord with no intercostal muscles to stabilize it.
Right, right, right. So if you lean forward, for example,
Right.
you wouldn't be able to get back up without pushing on something to get yourself back up, essentially. So,
Right. So, for instance, our adaptive kitchen has French door oven, so there's nothing to lean over.
interesting.
Yep.
Okay, cool. And so how well, so Yvonne, I'm so sorry.
It's
I'm
okay.
like, I knew I was gonna mess it up one of these days, but Yvonne, what what happened from your and obviously you weren't with Eric at the time, and
I was at home cooking dinner. Our youngest had, come home from high school kind of thing. And I got a call, and it was funny because I didn't recognize the number, and a lot of times I don't answer,
yeah.
but I did.
Oh,
And the um, paramedic who called me said, "Drop whatever you're doing and get to hospital right now." Didn't give me any details, but I had been an EMT when I was younger, and so I had never made that call like that to anybody, so I knew it was bad. So I had the very first meatloaf I had ever made in my life in the oven, which I just turned off and found it 4 days later when it started to smell,
oh no.
and I went downstairs and told our youngest, I'm like, "I something's happened, I have to go, you need to take care of everything here, keep your phone with you."
Mm,
And I was 7 minutes behind him in the hospital.
mm,
So, when I got in and they told me he was in CAT scan, so I knew it was bad
yeah.
because nobody gets to CAT scan that fast.
Right.
And I knew there was a lot of blood because I looked in the ambulance because it was still there too.
Oh,
I have no sense of space for other things. I will just go where I need to go.
sure. Yeah.
And so I got to the person who helps you get back behind to see your loved one or whatever. And I told him, I'm like, I'm not going to wait for very long. I
Yeah.
said, I'm going to go back there. So you need to get me back there as soon as you can. And the EMTs came to talk to me. The police came to talk to me. And I will tell you, everybody was like, "Oh, you're in our prayers." And after about the third time somebody says that, it's like, I don't really care. I
Yeah.
just want you to tell me what you saw because
Right.
nobody would tell me anything. I'm like, I want to know what you saw.
Uh,
I am actually educated in this. I
yeah.
want to know what you saw.
Yeah.
Um, and so anyway, they did get me back relatively quickly.
Okay.
And the very first thing that happened was as I'm walking up, the neurologist looks over and goes, "There's no brain damage, but he'll never walk again."
Oh,
And my answer was just, "I'm sorry?" And he goes, "Well, there's like a 10% chance." I'm like, "Well, then that's what you start with. So you're done. Leave. Goodbye. You will not touch my husband again."
oh my
And he's
gosh.
like, "Well, I don't care who you are. Bye." And the emergency room the doctor who's running the emergency room said, "She said to leave."
Yeah.
So,
Wow. Okay. Well,
and yeah, sorry.
that that's awesome that you had the um I guess the fight within you to be able to do that. I don't think a lot of people would do that in your situation.
Well, he started with there's no brain damage. So I knew I was still married to the same person. I
Yeah.
didn't know what the physical thing was. I just knew that it's still Eric, so
Right.
I can do this.
Right.
And as we talked, started realizing where the injury was and those kinds of things, and it was we made a decision in the ER fairly early that this can go south really fast,
Yeah.
or we can just try to make the best of this.
Right.
We talked about the futility of both anger and grief in a situation like this because neither can affect the situation at all. And while and I said, "Oh, I'm going to be a jerk and I'm going to be so angry at the world and everything." She said, "Well, I'll let you do that in 1 minute increments, you know."
Oh.
And we worked through it. I mean, I think acquired disability is it's a rabbit hole that you carry with you for the rest of your life because you could get sucked into it. Oh, woe is me, what I've lost.
Yeah.
Um, but you don't have to fall into it, and you learn ways of not falling into it if you
Yeah.
can get out of it in the first place. That's that grieving process. If
Right.
you can get through the grieving process, um, those are the people who aren't angry
Yeah.
still.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, and I mean, that first day in the ER, I mean, it was almost like a game because all the hospital chaplains want to come and talk to you, right? I'm just like, I don't need you yet. You know, he's not dying. Go away.
Yeah.
Go away. You know, and then it's a patient that they brought in who was clearly no stranger to sedation and wouldn't stay down. They all had all the nurses when the ENTs came to stitch his face up. So they gave me a job. I did suction and sponge. I mean, it's like
Oh.
finding finding those ways to get through that,
Yeah.
and having a purpose and knowing that I helped him, and that I mean, Eric was very, very honest right away. He's like, I'm going to be really angry, and I'm probably going to ruin our marriage.
Mm.
And I'm just like, no, you're not. We're going to get through this. And that's when we came to the agreement we were going to get through it.
Yeah. That's awesome. And
So,
how long was that? Did that recovery take?
The
well,
Well, yeah,
he was in SICU.
There's the physical
that's
recovery,
kind of twofold.
right?
Yeah, go ahead and answer both, I guess.
I was home much sooner than they thought I would be. I think I was
You were just over a month in hospital between the SICU and the inpatient.
Wow.
couldn't wait to get out because the food was so bad. If you were supposed to get an hour of PT, you got 59 minutes and 59 seconds and not a minute more if you got it.
Oh.
It was Health South at the time was, in my opinion, not run well. You had nurses who had been running on 412s, and they'd reward them with pizza in the break room that'd be cold before they'd ever see it.
Oh.
And I think it's one of the downsides of for-profit medicine, right?
Yeah.
It's all about the profit, not about the patient care.
Right.
So I couldn't wait to get out of there. And fortunately, I had a wife who would bring me food because the food there was terrible in terms of nutrition. They had this thing they called jambalaya that I swear to God, looking at it, it was rice-a-roni with a cut of hot dog.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
No, and I brought him most of his food, and then I'd also bring things that I'd left for the nurses or shared. But
Mhm.
and I learned how to. I mean, I watched the aides, I watched the nurses, and so then I started doing things like changing his sheets, doing his baths, doing the things that he needed because they weren't always available.
Yeah.
And the other thing was they also got him in a private room pretty quickly.
I had a lot of visitors. Being so we weren't just involved in the cycling community. Yvonne kind of took it on as like a team mom, and so we had these tailgates for all the bike races. And so bike races, kind of the more junior racers race in the morning, the more senior ones later in the afternoon. And we would always have tailgate for lunch, and we'd bring all this food. And if somebody crashed, Yvonne would do the triage. And so we were very well known within the cycling community. And so there was almost always someone there to keep me company for
Wow.
those first few weeks.
When he was in ICU, actually he was never alone.
Wow.
If I had to leave, I would send a text, and someone in the cycling community would be there before I left.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear a lot about I hear a lot of stories where I mean, even, my birth story with my parents, like the community was just so important. And you really find out who really cares and maybe who doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Like it's it's so cool to have that. What what would you say if maybe someone didn't have that community? What advice would you give that person?
God, I don't know how they would do it.
Find it, make it.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't have the community so much. We had the cycling community, but the cycling community is, and we talk about this a little bit when we talk about the farm quite often or Bolt Strong, and that is that with a disability, you don't lose your friend circle,
Right.
but you lose the ability to interact with them because they don't have accessible houses.
Right.
They feel bad about always coming to your house.
Yeah.
Restaurants are kind of, restaurants. It's like, well, can I get to the table? Can I use the bathroom?
Yeah.
Five people are gonna have to move and make a fuss about it every time I do it.
Right.
So that's one of the real motivations behind Bolt Strong. Is a place where you can always know you're going to be able to use everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, finding a new community, I think there's a resistance, particularly with acquired disability, to shy away from disability resource groups, community groups, et cetera, because again, until you let go of your old life, that's the grieving process. Until you realize you've got to start from scratch. Even if you are keeping those old friends, you really are well served by having a disabled community to lean on as well.
Yeah.
I mean, like when he first came home from hospital, part of my grieving process was accepting that he wasn't going to walk.
Mm.
So, we had the ramp and this kind of stuff put in. I resisted making changes in the house because we're not going to need those.
Yeah.
Is we're gonna have that miracle.
Yeah. It's almost like losing hope if you do make those changes of like it's just instead of accepting,
Yeah.
it's like, no, I don't want to accept this yet.
Yeah.
Like I want it to it'll get better over time, and yeah, I mean it's
Yeah. But over that period, I learned there were two things I absolutely learned to despise, and one is the phrase, "God never gives you more than you can handle."
mm,
I'm like, no, that that's not a fair thing to say to a lot of people.
yeah,
And then the other one is, if you just work hard enough, you really will walk again.
yeah, that's
Or if you're not believing enough, or
or
you're not
that's
working hard
that's
enough, or
the one that really bothers me the most is it's a matter of your faith. If you just had faith, then you would walk again.
mm.
Um,
Uh,
that's a trap.
are you people of faith?
not particularly.
Okay.
I was brought up in the church. I actually gave a sermon at the age of 16
Okay.
after doing mission work for a couple of years. Um, I'm also a scientist. I
Mm,
don't see any incompatibility between those two things.
sure.
But my beliefs have evolved considerably because of
Yeah.
the inputs of my experience, both the science, both traveling the world, understanding a lot of religions. So I'm a firm believer in a lot of the examples that are given in different religions.
Sure.
And a lot of people say, I've come to your farm and it's a very Christian thing you do here, or it's a very Buddhist, or it's a very no. You're literally observing the common tenets of religion in what we do.
Yeah.
We are here to welcome the stranger, to take care of the people who need healing. That's what we
Yeah.
want to do, and that's not a Christian, a Jewish, a Muslim. It's not. It is a fundamental human thing,
Yeah.
and religions capture it in their tenets, which is great.
Yeah.
But we're just saying we do the good stuff. We follow the examples of a lot of people, but we do it because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. And it's interesting, the Bible quote of like God won't test you beyond your capabilities. Like that is interesting, like to hear you say that you're not particularly religious and someone yet still tells you something like that. It's like, man, know your place. Like if maybe you were going to like a church and you were hearing that, it's like, okay, maybe this is along the lines of what you should be someone should say to you or something like that. But
Well, people have asked if we've had people even come to classes ask, may I pray for you? And you may.
yeah,
Um, that's
But
fine.
I think the concept of God never gives you more than you can handle actually flies in the face of Christianity itself, because the whole idea is that God is there to carry you when you can't handle it.
yeah,
Right. So God doesn't give you the situation that the world does. The world is set into motion, in my opinion. Right.
Yeah.
If speaking from a Christian perspective, and what happens to you isn't because you don't wake up in the morning and you got pink eye because God willed you to have pink eye. That's just the world has been set into motion. Right.
right,
But for people of faith who go through terrible things, that's when they can't handle it and they can lean on their faith, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's the whole point,
That's interesting.
right? So I think God gives all of us things we can't handle, and we
Mhm.
have to lean on others. We have to, and in some cases, you're literally unconscious for weeks at end because you're relying on others to bring you back to life, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
literally, God gives us things we can't handle all the time,
yeah.
and it's through community and caring for each other that we get through those things.
Right. Interesting. Okay. Um, yeah. Thanks for going down that rabbit hole. I'm always fascinated by by those things. How old were your kids when you had your accident?
The day of the accident, we had taken our oldest to the airport to go back to Seattle for University of Washington for their second year
Okay, so they're
that
about
morning.
20, something like
So
that.
so now at the time, Max was 19.
19,
19. Okay.
So Kay would have been
16.
16, 15, 16.
Okay. And you have two kids.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay.
They're my stepkids. So,
Okay.
but I got them at the right age for me. They were 5 and 8, and that's great because we could talk about things. I never had that drive that, everybody says women all want to have babies.
Yeah.
I didn't have that drive.
Ah. Okay.
I don't find other people's babies are great, but I can't relate to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so having the kids at 5 and 8 was great because we could relate. We could talk about things. We talked about all kinds of things and went on walks and
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. And so, what's the age difference between the kids?
2.5 years.
2.5 years. Yeah.
Okay. So, like, one was like 17 or something like that at the
16 and
time.
19.
Yeah,
Really
16,
on the cusp of
Okay.
birthdays kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay. And how are they throughout all this? Like, what was their reaction?
Well, our oldest, so there were things that they didn't know on their way back to Seattle.
Yeah.
Like the roommate they were planning on being with didn't tell them they weren't coming back.
Oh.
So they get there and they find this stuff out. But then I'm also like, oh yeah, and guess what happened here?
Oh.
So it was
So Max came back. Max dropped that semester and dropped out of UW and moved back to Cincinnati. Max was a vigilant caretaker for me for the first so many weeks. I mean, just hyper vigilant. I
Okay.
mean, that was his reaction, was just, I must protect.
Hmm.
And it was reassuring. I mean, but it was a little extreme at times, and I think he had to take a step back from that, which really helped.
Yeah.
Kay at the time had just started a new high school, and it's interesting. Kay, very interesting person, but a little differently wired than most of us, on audio processing disorder, technically, and came to us about a year before and said, "Look, I don't have great social skills, and I'm in this school for gifted kids. It's so tiny that I'm never going to develop them here. I really need to go to a bigger school before I try to go to college, or I'm not going to have any social skills."
Oh.
So very self-aware. And so the only place we could really find to do that, because even though she could test into a place like where you went, was
Walnut Hills.
Walnut Hills, was Madeira. And so we actually relocated to Madeira and got her enrolled in that school. And it was good because for what she went through with my injury, the school there was very caring, very nurturing for her. And so I think it was a good place for her to be for that process. But of course, it throws anybody's world into
Sure.
tailspin when your dad is suddenly disabled.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
try getting kids to learn how to drive after that.
Oh. Yeah. That's a good call.
Yeah.
Interesting. You were on a bike though,
Yeah,
right?
he's on a bicycle. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. And speaking of driving, do you use hand controls?
I
And
do.
can you kind of talk about your setup?
Yeah, I really have two. Initially, I took a manual chair because out of the gate, I'm like, I'm an athlete at the time, right? I'm doing all this cycling, and I want to use my muscles. I didn't understand not having core. I didn't understand that they wouldn't fit the chair to me initially. So it was a very painful chair for the first couple of years.
Oh.
So I'm very uncomfortable sitting upright. It was a very upright chair. I gave it some dump, but that still wasn't good. And so I moved. So for that, I have a modified Toyota van where it's got a lift behind the driver's seat. So what I do is it's got an articulating driver's seat that comes out and lowers down, so I can transfer from a manual chair to that seat. Then I put the manual chair in behind me. But were I to do it over again, I wouldn't have done that articulating seated brakes all the time.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
then when I switched to the power chair in 2018, I got a ramp van, which has, deploys a ramp, and then I can roll up the ramp and just lock into the floor and drive from there with hand controls.
Okay.
So the biggest difference is if it's pouring rain, to get into with my manual setup is about I think we clocked it once at 7 minutes or something
Whoa.
No,
ridiculous,
the,
right?
the shortest time to get into the manual van was 3 minutes.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Everything is like boom, boom,
I
boom.
remember one time getting to the van, it's pouring rain, and I've got like the matron, the host and the waiter from the restaurant holding umbrellas over me while I'm trying to get in to stay dry. Whereas with the ramp van, of course, I just fly out in there and I'm done, right? So it's incredibly convenient, but it's not an incredibly reliable vehicle either.
Yeah, interesting. Have you ever used a manual wheelchair?
Yeah. For the first couple of years, I was in a
Oh,
manual
okay.
chair.
That
Yeah,
was the chair that was uncomfortable.
yeah,
Got
and
it.
I still use it for like working out, that kind of stuff.
Or for
Okay.
traveling.
Travel, whenever
Yeah.
I travel, I take that chair.
Okay.
Because you don't, I mean, if you take a power chair on an airplane, the odds of them breaking it and then
It's like 40%.
Is it really?
It's ridiculous how often they drop a power chair and destroy it.
and
Wow.
it's probably about 40% of the time that they actually pay to fix it. and
Well,
it takes a long time to get it, all
the
that.
previous, not to talk politics, but the previous administration had put through a rule that they had to work to get you something on an expedited basis because multiple people have died from pressure sores waiting for
Yeah.
replacement wheelchairs, right?
Right.
And that has been canned. So it's
Whoa.
actually the opposite. They're going to make it so that it's kind of on, it's your risk if you're going to travel with your chair.
Wow. That's a bummer.
Yeah, because what happens is they come down those conveyor belts and they fall off at the top.
Yeah.
And no power chair is going to survive that fall.
Right.
So short of coming up with a special like Pelican case for a whole wheelchair, right? That you're going to protect it with.
Yeah.
I think it's best to travel with a manual or they make some of these folding power chairs now that they're geared for travel. But you lose the reason why a power chair is so helpful for me is being able to not get pressure sores by leaning back quite a bit,
Yeah.
tilting back, I should say, and having an elevator, being able to get to higher things and do things. That's really helpful.
I mean, like when we go out to eat at a restaurant, it's more comfortable for Eric to lean back a little bit. So we'll often go to a high top,
Yeah.
which you can't do in a manual chair.
Oh,
Yep.
interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. High tops are awful for for me in the manual wheelchair.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the first times we tried to go out with friends in Cincinnati, we went into a restaurant that the only accessible entrance into this restaurant was in the bar that had all high tops. And then it was stairs down to the dining room where they had
Whoa.
low top tables. And I'm in a manual chair. So today I would have been fine. I would have just sat at the high top, and been fine.
Right.
But, and yeah, it's nice. It's nice to elevate and then you kind of tilt back and you're comfortable, takes the weight off your spine. It's that weight on my fusion that causes the pain. So
Got it. Interesting. Okay. What changed with your relationship from before and after?
a lot. I mean, primarily our roles. I mean,
Yeah.
we were a great team, but great teams are great teams because they have different roles usually, right?
Yeah.
You don't try to do the same thing. So for instance, I liked being the short order breakfast cook,
Yeah.
and one time a couple times we had exchange students. So I would literally be making 4 or 5 different breakfasts, but I love doing that. I started cooking at like 11.
Yeah.
And so I just have always loved to cook. It's one of the things we used to do a lot together. And it's why we gravitated towards this cooking class.
Right.
But so those workflows, I liked it a lot of the dishes. Yvonne cooked more of the dinners and the kids' lunches. So all those roles had to change with Yvonne having to take on most of the physical roles, because there's so many things that if I can do it, it's like, come on, we got to be somewhere. Just let me do it,
Yeah. Yeah.
Because as you know, you can do almost anything if you're disabled. It just might take somewhere 10 to 100 times longer.
Right. Right.
But you can do it, right? I mean,
Right.
you can. So, Yvonne's had to. I was the handyman. I mean, I grew up working construction jobs. I knew how to do carpentry and all that. Well, and I didn't teach my kids any of that until after I was injured, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
so Yvonne has to take on all those roles too. So
Ah.
I wind up being more of a cheerleader a lot of the time than anything.
Okay.
Although a lot of times I come up with ideas. I'm the idea generator for a lot of things.
And IT.
Yeah.
And IT. definitely.
IT stuff.
Yeah, I do the IT.
Okay. Do you program or you just?
I don't program these days. I do. I mean, the geekiest stuff I'm doing lately is I'm doing a lot of CAD work and 3D modeling for like computational fluid dynamics and in industrial furnaces, like places where you're like heat treating car parts or melting glass.
Oh,
Checking up how the burner flow works and how it heats the furnace so you don't get hot spots. Doing all that numerically.
yeah.
So yeah, I do geeky stuff.
Interesting. Yvonne, do you have anything to add to what changed?
Well, I mean, obviously our roles changed from simply being best friends and spouses to me being a caregiver.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that in the early years I had to help him with that I don't help with now that
Yeah.
I know he's much happier with me not helping.
Yeah.
But I mean there's a lot of humiliation with acquired disability.
Sure.
And I think that was a little bit of a barrier for a while between us
Yeah.
because Eric felt, like I was doing things he didn't want me to have to do.
Right.
And for me, I'm just like, it's just biology.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
But, that changed that. But because everything really had changed, so our ninth anniversary was coming up after his accident.
Mm,
And so it occurred to me that, I'd always kind of thought in life there's these before and after moments where everything changes.
mhm.
I thought I was so clever with that. And then I really realized, oh my God, this really is,
Mm,
you know. And so I thought, well, our 10th anniversary is coming up and everything is different.
yeah.
So we should renew our vows.
Well, she's not saying it the way it happened. She proposed to me after I got home from the hospital, which was
Nice.
that was a very special moment.
Yeah.
Just, I'm still in it and
Yeah.
let's start the next chapter.
Yeah. Do you, I mean, I would imagine, I don't think I have any statistics to back this up, but I would imagine couples who go through something like this, maybe more often than not, don't stay together. Would you agree with that?
A
Yes.
high percentage of people who face this, it's the same thing as a high percentage of people who lose a child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't
I
make it.
mean, yeah, going through trauma like that and loss like that is very hard on a relationship. Um, we know a lot of interabled couples, but I think
Almost everybody we
is it
know.
all of
There's
them?
only one other couple that I know that
Yeah, one other couple that
stayed together after
stayed
the
together.
accident.
All the other interabled couples we know were post accident.
What do you think? I mean, hopefully, someone listening to this is, well, maybe not hopefully, but someone listening to this is maybe going through something like that and like trying to figure out, like, after something like this happened, like how to continue sticking with it. What do you think the trick is, or like any advice?
I think for me, it was, Eric mentioned the rabbit hole. And like for me, it would have been so easy and comfortable to fall in that rabbit hole.
Mm,
It's warm and comfortable and you can just drown in it.
yeah.
But I couldn't do that. I could walk around it.
Mm,
I could dip my toe in a little bit. I could look in it, but I couldn't let myself succumb to the rabbit hole.
right.
And I think that just making myself get up every day and facing, okay, this is just a different life. It's just different. He's
Yeah.
the same person. It's just different. We
Yeah.
have new challenges. It's different.
Right.
And I can adjust.
Right.
That was how I tried to approach it. But also, early on when he said anger and grief and it wasn't going to change it.
Right.
So I think the early on days of things when we were like, okay, we can do this together.
Mm,
We always made it a point of we can do this together.
yeah.
And that helped me.
Yeah, I think it takes a lot of, to get through acquired disability as a couple, and especially when you're going into a caregiver spouse role. It takes a lot of forgiveness and it takes a lot of gratitude.
Mm,
It's important to separate your relationship from the caregiving, but
mm,
at the same time, it's important to constantly acknowledge internally and externally the gratitude for having somebody who's willing to be your caregiver.
yeah.
Um, because that role is different, and you don't want the worst thing you get into is relating stress in the marriage to something caregiving related.
Yeah.
Well, you did this thing because linking those is never a good thing.
Mm,
Keep them distinct and keep your gratitude in the caregiving,
Mm,
keep your forgiveness in the in the caregiving. If you're the caregiver,
mm,
remember that that's a job. That's not your marriage. The marriage is in this other box, and it's the far more important thing.
yeah.
And then finding ways to still have that marriage. I think maintaining a healthy physical relationship, a romantic relationship, is critical
Yeah.
to being able to coexist with this existence,
Mm,
because you need both.
mm, mm. Interesting. Was there ever a moment where you tried to seek caregiving outside of the marriage?
No.
Well, we did probably
Um,
when he first came home from hospital.
that's
So for pressure sores,
Yeah.
you rotate every 2 hours.
Yeah.
You
that's
and,
what
and as you go along, you learn how to adjust for this.
Sure.
But, I was getting up every 2 hours, rolling every 2 hours, every 2 hours, every 2 hours. And, I mean, between him not getting sleep, I wasn't getting sleep. I felt like I imagine how people feel when they have a newborn. I mean, I was starting to lose it because the other thing is at that point, his mom had decided that she had moved to Cincinnati. She was gonna stop driving. So I was the only driver
Oh
for 5
gosh.
people.
Wow.
And then the 2 hours and this and that, and then keeping all the meds right because, we still hadn't worked out how things were gonna work around the house and
Yeah.
and all of these things. And so at that point, his doctor managed because this is where we found out about the, aid versus skilled nursing.
Mm,
Private insurance won't cover an aid, and that's really all I needed was an aid. I needed somebody who could come in and help him turn at night, who could help him with bowel program periodically, and who could help him stretch just so I could get some rest.
right.
And we couldn't get that because our insurance wouldn't cover an aid.
Wow.
But we did wind up because his doctor made a big fuss over it, we wound up getting, I think it was almost a month of a nurse
Oh,
that came 3 nights a week.
to do the AIDS job.
wow.
Yeah, but that's how it was solved, and she got some rest, and then we learned that we didn't have to follow the book of rotating me every 2 hours and all this
Right.
kind of stuff,
Yeah.
as happens.
Right.
But
Yes, I
your
mean, as we sorted that out and we were getting more rest,
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like in the especially in the medical field, they like to lean maybe more cautious than what is actually necessary, right?
Well, and I think we lack any kind of spinal cord resource in Cincinnati. Like if you're in
Mm,
Denver with Craig Hospital, Atlanta with Shepherd, whatever, there's a community, and they people can educate you in the nuances
mm,
of having a spinal cord injury. Whereas here, they can only read out of a book because it's all they got.
interesting.
We had one board certified spinal cord injury doc in Cincinnati for a number of years, but he was VA only, and he's since retired. And now we only have people who don't specialize in that, but kind of do it on the side here because we have spinal cord injured people here.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that that was I guess a need.
I think it's true in all fields of medicine right now, but particularly with things that are off the beaten path, like spinal cord injury or worse.
Yeah.
If you're not educating yourself and being your own advocate, you're certainly not getting the best treatment.
Yeah.
The,
Yeah.
the system itself is not going to send you down that path.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like, ordering a wheelchair. Like I feel like those reps are like almost trained to sell you add-ons and stuff like that, like just stuff that you just don't need. And like, I can walk a little bit and I used to walk back in the day with crutches and so like they tried to sell me on like a crutch holder and it's like no, I haven't used crutches in like a decade. Like
Mhm.
I don't need a crutch holder and like just other things that are just I like just completely basic and there's really it's it's hard to find somebody that is your advocate for what you actually need instead of like all these accessorizes and
Mhm.
stuff like that. So yeah,
right.
interesting.
It's hard to get it is very hard in many ways, I think, to get medical professionals to listen.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, that's been an issue that we've had, but, so first of all, we're scientists, we're educated. He has a PhD, I have a master's degree.
yeah.
So I will tell you right now, I was treated very differently in hospital
Mm,
when he was there versus some other uh, spouses or family members of other people.
oh,
I mean, I talk like I talk. I
yeah,
look like I look.
yeah.
I'm educated. I was treated very differently than, say, the African American woman who was there with her
Mhm.
husband in the bed next to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's another thing that you've got to navigate. That's a whole new thing.
Yeah.
I'm also fairly assertive.
Yeah.
So, I didn't take anything from anybody.
Right.
Um, but if you don't know, if you don't even know how to look for it, if you're not educated, it's a whole other issue.
Right.
I mean, I started with sort of a drug regimen out of the gate given me by the doctors who read out of the manual, right?
Yeah.
But with the exception of one thing, my whole drug regimen is what I've come up with and told my doctor I needed
Yeah.
because I did the research that
Right.
they weren't able to do because the private equity company that owns their company, doesn't let them spend that much time on their patients.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I told you before the podcast, I'm going through some like some visual and
Right.
head type things, and it's been over a month since I've had these symptoms, and I'm having complications with getting an MRI scheduled, and like my MRI isn't until like like a month and a half from now,
Yeah.
and then like I went to the ER early on with this because I didn't know what was going on. It was scary,
Sure.
and they would come in and they're like, here, take this, and I'm like, is this gonna save my life? And they're like, no, this is just to calm you down. And I'm like, I don't want that, thank you. But it's, I don't know. I think I'm relating to what you're talking about based on like my recent experiences in the in the medical space. It's like like I oftentimes ask like, okay, is there any vitamins and minerals that I can be taking that might help my symptoms or stuff like that, and like there was one doctor that said, all right, stay away from like vegetable oils and like sugar and like the things that make you unhealthy. They're like there's different things that are anti-inflammatories that you need to stay away from and stuff like that, and like most doctors were like, here's a prescription and here's this and here's that, and it's like, yeah, but like,
What can they bill for?
yeah,
They can bill for
exactly.
procedures and prescriptions, that kind of stuff. They can't bill for telling you what to eat.
That's such a good call.
But there's a lot of snake oil out there.
Oh,
Okay, so understand, I'm a chemist. You can ask him, in the cycling community, I've always been food is medicine.
Yeah,
Food is absolutely medicine. That's part of why we do the cooking classes, and
yeah,
we get into that later, but I spend a ridiculous amount of time thinking about food
interesting.
because a lot of the people who come to our classes have conditions that have comorbid issues.
Yeah,
If you have risk of pressure ulcers, you need substantially more protein than the average person.
oh,
If you have neurogenic bowel, you need to reduce your fiber. What many of my people who come to classes have diabetes, but they have developmental disabilities. How do I help them navigate that?
yeah,
Various things like that. But there's a lot of snake oil out there, especially
there
right
is.
now.
Yeah,
It's like, drink raw milk.
yeah,
No, don't drink raw milk. There's a
yeah.
reason why people didn't live past 40 before pasteurization.
Mm,
Okay. Sometimes science is right. But, sorry, that is a issue of mine. Um, but there are foods that you can eat. There are ways that you can combine certain foods together to get, better absorption. There's healthier ways to get food that's not as processed. So like, if you go to a farmer's market and buy your vegetables from somebody who's farming organically, or even if they're not, you're still going to get more nutrition from that than from these big factory farms that drain the soil of all the nutrition in it,
right, right.
that you're getting at the grocery store that sits for months. There are lots of ways to approach things.
Yeah,
Um, and there are anti-inflammatory things. There's also an awful lot of herbal medicine
yeah,
that is legit,
right.
but there's a lot of stuff that isn't.
Yeah.
And so that's something, I mean, as a scientist, as a chemist, I help a lot of the people who come to our classes navigate some of that stuff.
Mm, yeah, that's interesting. I'd love to dive into that a little bit deeper at some point. Maybe we'll have time today. Maybe we won't. But if nothing else, off the outside of the podcast, I will say I had somebody on Jen who swears by raw milk, and they drink it all the time, and that's interesting. And in today's world, I think one of the really interesting things is like I'll hear it all right?
Mhm.
And if someone can explain it to me in a way that I can understand, and obviously I don't have a degree in any of this stuff or do it for a living like you guys do, as far as like the cooking and like all that, and the farm and
It
all that.
it's probably important though for people to repeat it over and over again that pasteurization isn't even boiling milk. It's heating it to 160 degrees. That's it. That's all
Yeah,
it is.
yeah,
And so if all you have to do is heat it up to be warm enough to drink before bed and that makes it safer, I think it's worth doing.
got it.
But also understand. So if an individual is making a choice to drink raw milk,
Mm-hmm.
that's their individual choice.
Yeah, sure.
It's like, and we can go through this with vaccinations. Okay, if you don't want to get a tetanus vaccine, that's fine. That
Mm-hmm.
affects you.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to get a measles vaccine, you're affecting everybody around you in the community.
Right.
Well,
So there are differences in how I approach these things.
the
Yeah.
the the the, the problem I have with any of these anti-science issues is that they're touted by people whose entire life is predicated on science. This
Uh,
microphone, this boom stand,
yeah.
those computers, the lights,
Your cell
everything
phone.
here is brought to us
Yeah.
courtesy of science. We're willing to trust science with literally everything in our life,
Yeah.
except somebody told us we should be afraid about this.
Yeah.
And we can't trust the scientists there. Just so people know, the scientists are the ones who are trying to discover things and make things. They're not the people running companies.
Mm-hmm.
Those are called business people.
Yeah.
I grant you, we can't trust business people a lot of the time.
Yeah.
The scientists are generally a great community trying to prove if somebody's doing something wrong, that community goes out there and they prove them wrong and they kick them out. That's
Right.
what we do.
Yeah.
That's why we have peer review.
Right.
So science is our friend. We use it in our lives everywhere.
Mm.
So trust it.
Mm.
Trust that it'll make mistakes and that it'll learn and evolve and become better.
Yeah.
But science is far more trustable than politics.
Sure.
Who looks to capitalize on rage and,
Right.
outrage and everything else.
Right. Yeah. Interesting.
Those are our soapboxes. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. It's good conversation. Okay, let's get into the theme podcast question. What keeps you rolling forward? Yvonne, we'll start with you.
Some days it's kind of hard, but generally what keeps me moving forward is all these people out there that I don't know, they just add to my life, and like knowing that I can make something a little bit easier,
Yeah.
something a little bit better, give somebody that independence
Mm.
or that safe space.
Mm.
And it does it. And knowing that, I got my husband with me.
Yeah.
That's a huge reason to keep moving forward.
Yeah. I love that. Eric.
I think we're all motivated by the chance to create.
Yeah.
Whether that's creating through conversation, through art, through whatever else. And so Bolt Strong is very much a creation thing. I love the vision and watching it slowly come to fruition. But I love the work right now I'm doing this consulting work, doing computer modeling. I love doing that too. Anytime where I'm interactively creating new things, I really enjoy that. That motivates me.
Yeah. Awesome. Can you share a story where things were tough and you kept rolling forward anyway?
Other than the injury itself.
Other
right?
than the injury, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
I'm not sure how much I can talk about it. Like I said, after his injury, we'd kind of gotten in a good place.
Mm-hmm.
We had sold the shares of our company, all these things. We had these 5-year contracts, and we're like, well, okay, at least this is going to work. And here we were, trying, in the first stages of rebuilding our life together, when the company decided that they didn't like the idea of somebody in a wheelchair being the face of the company.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't, Eric can speak for himself. It was a huge blow to me, because it's like, it's one thing to say you don't want me, fine. But, you know, you at least acknowledge, they acknowledge how much Eric built this company
Yeah.
and what he did for it.
Yeah.
So that was
Well,
that was hard.
there's some context here too. Is so our company, the company that we worked for and eventually bought, was a small company, about
Mm.
25 people. And then we opened a company in China. That was another small company.
Yeah.
I think they eventually grew to be 30 some people as well. Then we merged to form a bigger company. We were no longer the primary shareholder, but the third largest shareholder. And I wound up managing, and Yvonne helped me transform a company in Milwaukee, another small company, maybe 40 people. Everywhere we worked, it was small companies. And so these people were like family. And
Mm.
most of the principals at every location had been to our house for dinner.
And
Yeah.
even not like if somebody came to Cincinnati to train, we always had people at our house for dinner.
I mean,
Yeah.
our management style wasn't much different than the way that we approach our participants in Both Strong. We've always been very empathetic managers, leaders, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
You know, when one employee wanted to make product overnight because they couldn't find somebody to watch their mother during the day, we found a way to accommodate that.
Yeah.
You know, we've always been that way. And so when I was in the hospital, I remember talking with the hospital staff and saying, "Well, it's terrible, but at least I've got this great job. I've got these great people that I work with." And
And that was taken away.
Mm.
for in a real way, it was more devastating than paralysis
Wow.
because it was taking away my family.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gotta be,
I think my I think my journey to healing would have been very different with those people around me.
yeah. How long after your injury did that happen?
I was still in a rented hospital bed in my home. I'd just been home from the hospital.
Hold on, we
But
can't hear you.
sorry, I was still in a rented hospital bed at home. It was probably only a week after I'd been home when my
It was
boss
within 2 months.
No way.
and he wanted to come and have a meeting with me at my house, and he sat 6 feet away from me with me in a tilting up hospital bed, telling me that you can't give customers confidence from a wheelchair. You know, maybe we can find some for you in engineering.
Whoa.
And I had been the lead executive for Cincinnati, Milwaukee, Beijing, and Shanghai. I had been the head of product development, and the vast majority of products were my designs, at least in North America. You know, and this was I was more than a little invested in this company. It
Mm.
was very much a part of me,
Yeah.
and to have that ripped away from me was just terrible.
Yeah. Wow.
And it took me forever to find another job because nobody wants to hire, cripple. Sorry to use such a terrible word, but I don't normally use that.
No, it's okay.
No one wants to hire somebody coping with a disability, and I faced that. I mean, in looking for a new job. So my background was in sensors. I did sensors as an undergrad. I did sensors for NASA. I did it for my PhD. So a Cincinnati sensor company. The owner wanted to get out of the daily management and was looking for somebody to run it.
Hmm.
And they actively pursued me when I said wasn't interested. I really don't want to do much travel.
Yeah.
They kept ratcheting back the travel. And they were fine. We don't need travel. You're just so perfect for the job. It was even in an area that I'm a specialist in.
Hmm.
And then they found out that I was paralyzed through they looked me up on the internet, saw the local 12 special of me going home or whatever. And suddenly they were no longer interested. The
Wow.
owners decided to try to find somebody with more industry experience. They're like, well, there isn't anybody. I'm
Yeah.
48 years old. I've been doing this since I was in college,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So it was rough, and yeah, that was definitely the hardest thing. And we kind of went through round two of it because in January of 2025, I was let go after restructuring three departments for the company. The guy who really didn't like me was running it. He went so far as to make the one accessible bathroom inaccessible by taking out the roll under sink.
No
Yeah, and
way.
he kept insisting that I would have to come into the office for meetings. All the meetings were I would have to know them on Teams because they were upstairs and there was no elevator.
Whoa.
And I had been working remote for my it's a long story, but I had a global reporting role. They sold the local company. I wound up going with the local company, and they wanted to change all the policies I've been working with. And so eventually, after working very hard to get them where they needed to go after being bought out by a private equity firm, then they cut me loose. So
Wow.
I've been doing consulting work, this computer modeling stuff like and whatever. And it's actually more enjoyable not having to deal with the whatever you want to call that the work there's a thing when you work for a fear-based manager where work just really sucks.
Yeah.
When you work for transparent, empathetic, trust-based leaders,
Hmm.
totally different. But
Mm.
this was not that. This was a fear-based environment, and it wasn't very healthy. And so I'm glad to be done with it.
Yeah. Interesting. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate the transparency and the honesty, and yeah, thank you. Um, what's one tool or mindset you rely on to help keep you rolling forward?
I really try to stay positive. I mean,
Yeah.
I try to think, okay, so this isn't working. There's got to be a way to make it work. There's, just like, you know, in a relationship, there has to be a way to make it work.
Mm,
You know, maybe I have to give, you have to give, whatever. So I try to look at things as it's going to work out. Got to try really hard. Right now, there's a lot of reasons to have anxiety and a lot of stress and things of that sort,
mhm,
whether it's from the world or from just my farm having too much rain and being flooded, those kinds of things. So what can I do? So if it means going in the greenhouse and looking at seedlings and that sparks that again, that'll keep me going forward. If
mm,
it's, you know, helping Eric work out,
mm,
that might be it. If it's we have a high school student who wants to do their community service hours with us, and when they come and they work and plant things or help us out with a class and that it's that spark that I know that it's helping somebody else, that it's, you know, you affect change one thing at a time. I
mm,
mean, I can look at all these things, right? And I can't squeeze those down to make them manageable.
yeah.
But if I can do one thing, just one thing at a time. I mean, when he first came home from hospital, I was in this mode of one thing at a time.
Mm,
Right now, I have to focus on how do I get this medication or
mm,
how do I make sure he can eat this meal or something, whatever it is.
right.
But breaking it down into manageable pieces, one thing at a time, that's how I keep that's how I keep going.
Yeah. That's
I look for the one something positive and go work for that one thing.
yeah. Well said, Eric.
I think I tend to stay focused on the path where we're trying to get to. That's what kind of pulls me out of
Mm,
the distractions of life, the doom scrolling, whatever
mm,
else is, you know, how are we going to get to the point where we can do this other thing that we want to do for Bolt Strong, or maybe it's, for Bolts and Outs, that's our commercial side. How can we get this product into retail so that we can fund the stuff we're doing on the farm?
yeah.
That kind of thing, working on, which is a creative process. Again, if it wasn't for creative processes, I think I would be much worse off mentally.
Mm,
Like keeping myself engaged and trying to solve problems and come up with new ideas. I think that's what keeps me moving forward more than anything else.
that's awesome.
Well, and you know,
Your wife.
having an amazing partner.
Yeah. 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 Let me ask you this. One thing that you said was like I'm maybe paraphrasing, but like the goals of what you're working towards and all that keeps you moving forward. I've been thinking a lot about like the balance of like looking to the future, looking at maybe the past of I don't know what you could have done better, and then also focusing on the moment. And I think something that really helps out with mental health specifically is looking at the moment, and I think the moment helps you with gratitude and all that. So can you speak to and I'm sure you both can speak to this, but can you speak to like the balance between looking towards the future and staying in the present and all that?
Certainly, I mean, speaking just for myself, I was thinking about the same things you were when I was thinking my first answer here.
Yeah,
Is there is that difference of where you spend your time thinking. I try to spend very little time thinking about the past.
yeah,
There's things to learn from the past, but I carry those with me predominantly as kind of almost like a DNA, right?
yeah,
There are situations I get into that the light bulb goes on and you remember that thing. That's always useful. But dwelling on the past is difficult if you want to move forward, in my
sure.
opinion. I think that the 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 mindfulness aspect, the living in the moment thing, for me, that's a grounding. That's my hardest moments. I stop thinking about the future and the past, and I only think about the moment.
Yeah,
And that's very helpful in those situations. I remember had to have a needle stuck through my Adam's apple and to inject something into my larynx, right?
Whoa.
Conscious and whatnot. I was very much in the moment, right?
Yeah.
Nowhere but in my breathing, right?
Yeah.
And
And it was fascinating to watch. I'm like, how are you actually able to
I
do this?
would say having the ability to meditate on something like just your breath has come in incredibly useful since I've been paralyzed.
Yeah.
Those are the worst moments.
Yeah.
I like to describe them to, I like to tell people that, suffering is the belief that this terrible situation you're in is never going to change, right?
Mm.
It's like being at the dentist, but thinking it's going to go on forever, right?
Mm.
We can endure the dentist because we know it's going to end.
Yeah.
And so mindfulness gets me into that space where I realize everything ends, everything changes. So I can get through this.
Okay. Interesting.
The future is the motivation.
Yeah.
I get a fire in my belly when I think about having a fishing pier for wheelchairs on my pond.
Yeah.
I don't have it yet, but that gets a fire in my belly. The first time I see a quad cast a line with a fishing magician from May We Help on my pond, I'm going to be so happy.
Yeah.
I get jazzed about the idea of building an accessible kitchen and a community garden in a food desert, like the same thing we have on our farm, but in a place where everyone's got power chairs and no way to get them anywhere but all around the street because you
Yeah.
can't afford a van.
Yeah.
We'll put in a community kitchen like ours and a community garden. Now you can wheel yourself a few miles away, make your week's worth of meals, and wheel yourself home.
Yeah.
That is what motivates me. So I get the motivation from the future, I get the lessons learned from the past, and the mindfulness present is really my refuge from the world.
I love that. Yvonne, do you have anything to
Very,
add?
very similar. I mean, if I can focus on something right now,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it is, a meditation. Sometimes it's
Cooking.
just figuring it
Her
out.
meditation is cooking.
Yeah, when I get really stressed, I power cook.
Mm.
So we'll have 10 soups made in the freezer and that.
Cool.
But with that, I also look at, to the future with these classes. I would really love to see us, secure funding that we can create Bold Strong as a professional nonprofit where we can have 7-day-a-week programming. It could be after school programming for kids with disabilities come in and, have activities, do summer camps for kids with mixed abilities. Um, have that community kitchen where, because you can access everything, you come in and you prepare your week's worth of meals that you're going to take home and have meal prep. Uh, we can teach classes on nutrition. We just lots of different things.
Krav Maga.
Krav Maga. But we have this 4,000 square foot facility at our property that we had originally, what it was originally meant for isn't something we're using it for now, but it is accessible. So we could do job training.
Yeah.
There's all these things that we could do. So that's the motivation that keeps me going. And
we have this group of volunteers to see them, to be able to put them in a position to do this professionally would be just so fun to watch.
Yeah.
They're so good. They would just create the most amazing place.
Yeah. Have you thought about scaling?
we're currently working on our plans to try to secure funding and try to make this.
That's awesome. Like
Yeah.
nationwide, statewide kind of
Well,
thing?
we'd love to create it like here's a package and we can set this up here or here, but where we're at in Loveland, it's our farm is accessible, our
Yeah.
building's accessible, but if you don't have access to transportation, we're not that accessible. So that's where the idea of having a community kitchen and garden in a food desert comes from.
Yeah.
Is that, we go downtown and you see people with power chairs, but there's nowhere for them to go other than on the sidewalks. And I think the buses might be accessible.
The
but it's still-
community we serve is largely not affluent,
Yeah.
right? So transportation is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so our ability to reach them is limited in many ways. And it's very difficult to get any kind of transportation funding in a grant as well.
Yeah.
So in the long run, we'd love to be able to bring this experience to more people by being in more places.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So, okay. So here's like I love ideas as well. And so I because of like all these organizations that I know and I'm affiliated with in some ways. So Cincinnati Tennis Foundation, when you said transportation, like that's huge. And like, we have people coming from Northern Kentucky and even, further south than that, all the way up to past Mason. And like, it's pretty vast as far as like who we can cater to. And kind of our goal is like we do we have able-bodied and disabled people as part of our is part of our network, mostly kids, but within the adaptive space, it's everybody because we're the only ones that offer the tennis and pickleball and
Mhm.
whatnot. But like transportation is I mean, especially for like the able-bodied kids who maybe don't have the ability to get from to the tennis courts and stuff like that. And it's like I've just recently connected with an organization called All Inclusive Living, who they're out of Columbus and they're building a facility in Dublin, and their concept is so cool. It's community based, and they're going to populate it with people who maybe wouldn't otherwise be able to live on their own.
Mhm.
And so they made sure that like the common area was there was a kitchen and a whole bunch of other cool things where like it was completely accessible for everybody. And
Mhm.
I think that they're still building that and all that, but they've got the plans and they've talked to a whole big variety of disabled people to do that. And connecting those dots, it's like, wouldn't that be cool to have like a facility where like, apartment complex where people live
Mhm.
in the apartment complex. They don't have to go anywhere. The kitchen and the accessibility is all in one place, and maybe there's a tennis court or something like that in it as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Like, how cool would that
I
be?
mean, really, you're just describing the end goal of universal design.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
build it so anyone can use it anywhere,
Yeah.
'cause, people like to I mean, it's easy to think in terms of only 1 in 1,000 people are ever paralyzed,
Mhm.
but 1 in 4 people will eventually be disabled through illness or age
Yeah.
or for the way they were born, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a huge demographic,
Yeah.
but it's not but in our capitalist system, until that demographic demonstrates a certain purchasing power, it's not gonna cater to that demographic, right?
Right. Right.
So that's why you mentioned a question earlier about before the show, what do you think about forcing people to be accessible? And I'd say universal design is in everyone's interest.
Yeah.
Um, and there's ways to make it palatable so that it's attractive, so that it's not an interference of any kind, and it can be, if it's done from the beginning, quite affordable. There's always going to be grandfathering in things, but I think universal design is how we kind of br- break down all these barriers.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think and we're in a society of like almost instant gratification of like, oh, I don't need that. And I worked in the retail space and banking for a while, and like the amount of people that were were able to save but didn't because it was like an instant gratification thing. It was kind of eye opening to me, and so yeah, I think that's something that I'd love to spread on my podcast is that universal design and like how Abby called it an age and place home, and I thought that was a neat concept. I mean, it makes sense. I've never heard of that, but I've heard of it loosely, let's say, but not that specific concept in and of itself. And it's like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I was telling you before the podcast as well, like find like I own a home, and finding a home that was like moderately accessible, that like I had to design very, very little. Like there were steps up into every single entrance of this home, and I had to put a ramp in, and there's a basement, and there was a washer dryer in the basement, and I put a washer dryer in one of the bedroom closets. And so yeah, I don't know. It's how do we get people to adopt that philosophy, who are able-bodied, who aren't in that disability world, who maybe don't care?
Well, you have to I think the one of the toughest things is to get people to understand that giving equity to another group, lifting somebody else up does not take away from you. But that is a current thing. There's if women are equitably paid, are men losing something?
Sure,
You
yeah.
know, there's been all these experiments that show how things react to this. But if we can step away from the notion that helping somebody else with equity, equity is not equality.
Uh,
So that's just that's not the same thing. Our classes that we teach are equity in action. You know, when you come to a kids class, the siblings can come too, and this kind of thing. And so interabled families are there. But these kids actually get to see equity in action because they all get to do the same things.
Mm,
They do the same craft. They do the same cooking. Maybe your brother needs a different surface to work at that's height adjustable, or he gets a different tool, but
mhm,
he's brought up to the same level as you to be able to do the same things.
mhm.
And that is equity.
Yeah,
And no one suffers from that. But a lot of people have this zero sum gain, or whatever thought it is that by taking that marginalized group and giving them some rights, you're taking something from me.
yeah.
And that's the mentality that we have to battle to get people to accept more universal design.
And interestingly, where you see the most universal design going on right now is in high end homes being built, by sort of people my age or a little bit younger.
Yeah.
They're building a second home. They're building a home for the first time, but they've got money now. Mom and dad are gonna, or mom or somebody's gonna live with them,
Yeah.
and they want universal design. But the
Mhm.
thing is, there's no reason builders couldn't start incorporating that into all new house building. I mean, it's real easy to have flush thresholds.
Yeah.
It's easy to have slopes to get into places instead of steps to get into
Mhm.
places. Um, and advertising it as aging in place is great because, the one thing you absolutely don't want to say is we're making it, handicapped
Yeah.
accessible, right? Because
Yeah,
there's an
like
egg factor to that.
yeah.
Oh, there's going to be big silver grab bars everywhere, and you don't have to do that, obviously. And so one of the strategies in universal design is those things become camouflage. You
Mhm.
have grab bars in bathrooms that look ornate and they look decorative, like you couldn't lean on them, but they're wrought iron and they're
Mhm.
sturdy as heck. But that's it. It's making it palatable and making it affordable, and it makes no sense not to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I want to push back on I think one thing that Yvonne, I think I heard you say is making things equitable doesn't hurt anybody. And this is maybe a hypothetical scenario, but let's say I'm an able-bodied person. I go and I buy a non-accessible facility, and I I'm just getting up on the ground. You guys are business owners, and
Mhm.
you know what it takes to run a business, running on thin margins and stuff like that. And like, let's say I buy this building to start my business. That's not my first priority, and if for me to make it accessible, I think that would hurt my livelihood and my family and stuff like that. So, what is
Well,
your response to that,
Well,
I
well, there's
guess?
there's a lot of factors there. So if you're doing a business greenfield and
Mhm.
you're building it, doesn't hurt you to make it
Sure.
accessible,
The
okay?
building
If you
piece.
if you buy a building that is a historical building, you may have restrictions on what you can do to that. I
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah.
If you buy a building and you're gonna renovate it for what you're gonna do in there,
Mm.
it really doesn't change that much to make an accessible
I
entrance.
agree with that.
So I don't see as much of a barrier to that as some people might.
Mm.
but I have a non-hypothetical
Sure.
to 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 give as an example. The first job I got after being paralyzed that later kind of turned into a bad situation was a great situation at first. And they were not an accessible facility.
Yeah.
But I went to OOD and said, "Will you help this people who want to employ me
That's
become accessible?"
opportunities for Ohioans with disabilities.
Thank
Part
you,
of the
thank you.
Bureau of Vocational Disability has a subgroup called OOD, Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities.
Mhm.
And they came in and did a significant amount of the funding to put in automatic doors in the bathroom on the front.
Yeah.
Company put in the ramp, but it was a teamwork. So there are resources for companies who want to do this
Yeah.
that are available.
Mhm.
There's a very big movement among most governments around the country to get more disabled people back into the workforce because they generate taxes,
Yeah, yeah,
and a lot of them, the only reason they're not in the workforce is because they'll lose Medicaid if they make too much, the Medicaid poverty trap again.
yeah.
So you've got somebody like, let's say I was a quad and I needed an aide to help me in the bathroom, so I had to go on Medicaid because it's the only way I could do it. Okay, I'm a PhD in material science with a bunch of patents. I've designed all kinds of things. My value isn't in how fast I run stairs,
Right.
right? It's in my brain and what I
Mm.
can still do.
Mhm.
None of that's been hindered. But
Yeah.
but in that situation, I would be out of the workforce simply because I needed an aide who makes $45,000 a year at best,
Right.
right?
Right.
And the return on putting me back into the workforce more than pays for that aid.
Mhm.
So
But let's explain that real quick though. So, private health insurance does not cover AIDS. The
Yeah.
only thing that covers an aid is Medicaid.
Mhm.
And you can't get a skilled nurse to do the things that aides do, like help in the bathroom,
Mhm.
things of that sort. So you either have to make another 45, 50, $60,000 a year to be able to pay for an aid out of pocket,
Mm.
or you go on Medicaid. And that's what we call the Medicaid poverty trap.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you don't have the ability to have a six-figure plus job,
Mhm.
you may not have the ability to hire an aide separately. You also then you can't get married.
Right.
Then there's all
yeah,
these things you can't do to be able to keep an aide that, you know,
it,
helps you live a productive life.
So,
it
so
exists
just to be clear, real quick, if you get married, it's combined income,
for Medicaid.
and therefore, because your combined income is now above the threshold, you lose that aid on Medicaid, essentially.
Which is on the face counterintuitive because
Yeah, it's
if you're on
horrible.
if you're on SSDI, your spouse's income doesn't count,
Yeah.
but on Medicaid it does. So it's basically saying to the most needy among us
Yeah.
that we will help you,
Yeah.
but only enough to keep you alive,
Right.
and you will have to live in poverty for the rest of your life.
Right.
And that's why we use that term poverty trap
Yeah.
because it's cruel.
Mhm.
And it's denying the value that this person has, that inherently this person has.
Yes.
It's denying
Just
their value, but not just to them. It's denying it to the overall economy.
Right.
You know,
so that's what I mean.
we
It's not it's
oh, okay.
it's the you know, the value that a person with a disability brings to a company is far more significant.
Yeah.
And by creating this poverty trap, you're denying not only the dignity to that person of having a job,
Yeah.
of working in these situations, you're denying the world from the skills that they're bringing.
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
know, and that's the one of the fundamental things I've learned in these classes is every participant has something to give,
Yeah.
and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And if I weren't participating in these classes, I might miss that.
Mhm.
And by creating this poverty trap, we miss it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was telling you before the podcast. I've talked about where I was stuck, and thankfully for my parents that they helped get me out of that, and where I didn't. I stopped being I stopped needing the like Social Security disability and stuff like that. So yeah, it's interesting. So man, I wasn't necessarily planning on having this conversation at this point in the podcast, but let's roll with it, so to speak, right?
That's why
Uh,
they make editing software, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, right. Yeah, being a one man show, I don't do a lot of editing, so I do short editing, but for the full podcast, until I can make money, let's say on the podcast, I'm not like doing much editing, if anything, but
It's a time-consuming process.
yeah, yeah, it sure is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what's the solution? Like what's an actionable thing that can be done for this?
Oh, it's very simple. We all learn very early on in our working careers that you get the best insurance from big companies because they have the largest risk pool. The
Yeah.
largest risk pool is all of us.
Yeah.
Done.
Mm,
Don't have to go any further than that. One risk pool, all of us. You can call it, we all get insurance together. You can call it socialized medicine if you want to. And you don't want to sound scary,
mm,
but every other developed nation does it successfully, but
mm,
us.
mm.
And we instead pay $30,000 a year for catheters.
People go bankrupt in this country where they don't in others.
Mm.
It's a fact. So yeah, I think getting to a single risk pool for insurance so that we're all covering for each other when we get sick.
Mm.
That's the lowest cost you can get. And taking some of the profiteering. For instance, in Japan, there's a cap on the profit that medical companies can make. So there, the average price for a CAT scan is like $100. Here, it's $1,500.
Wow.
So that's what we can do. And it's not like the Japanese have a lower standard of living.
Right.
So
Well, think about the cost of insulin.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the thoughts that I have, and I'm sure other people might have this as well, is I think I have a fear of, I think let's say big corporations, right? That like they can often be corrupted and just want to worry about money and stuff like that. And a one healthcare system, I think you lose competition, you lose innovation,
But
or
why do we want
stuff like that.
competition? Why do we want financial competition in medicine? So think about it this way. If
Mhm.
medicine is based on profit and insurance is based on profit, as soon as you have a chronic condition,
Yeah,
whether acquired through illness or injury or whatever else, you are now a loss center. They
yeah,
can never make money on you.
yeah,
The only way they benefit in any way from you is your death.
yeah.
You have set a company up with a vested interest in an outcome.
It's
And what
horrible.
companies do is they find ways to that out. Companies are organisms.
You're right.
And as long as it's within the rules, a company will find a way to make that happen.
Yeah.
Why do you think you have to wait months to get an examination for something that could kill you?
Yeah.
Because it could kill you before then, and they save money.
Wow.
This is a fact. This is how capitalism. I have run many companies,
Yeah.
and without an overriding, guiding morality,
Yeah.
companies will always do what generates wealth for their shareholders
Sure.
within the law.
Yeah.
And if that is, oh, if we challenge every claim and make them fight for it,
Yeah.
it'll delay it so many more weeks, their chance of dying goes up this much. They
Yeah.
literally can calculate that money. They do this all the time, I guarantee you,
Sure.
because that's what capitalism does. So
So
competition can be great, but scientists compete all the time with no money rewards.
yeah.
So you can have competition without setting it up to make people into loss centers
Yeah.
who are better off dying for my company.
Yeah. I think that's maybe more my point is like the one company might want to do an innovation and take care of their customer in one way, versus another company might want to do it this way. And like really that experiment is where you find the best case scenario, right? And my fear is with if we have one healthcare system completely, then that takes away from that slightly.
Well,
So
Does that make sense?
in many countries like Canada,
Mhm.
UK,
Mhm.
Mexico, you can also get private insurance.
Sure.
So there is some level of competition.
Yeah, yeah.
But what it is basic healthcare is a basic human right.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I'm going to flip that around on you, right?
Mhm.
Some people would say the best way to find a cure to this condition is you get a bunch of teams competing to get there, right?
Mhm.
But you know what's funny? There's no prize for the scientists getting here, right? It's only for the companies,
True.
right? So what helps these people over here that do the actual work is if they can work together.
Yeah.
So, for instance, take spinal cord injury. We spend most likely, I've done some estimates, probably about $20 billion a year
Mhm.
supporting people with spinal cord injuries on Medicare, Medicaid, SSI, SSDI, right?
Mhm.
If we got all of the various people doing spinal cord injury research together and gave them $20 million,
Mhm.
they'd cure spinal cord injuries.
Wow.
Guaranteed. It's all there, but they're fighting over the same scraps
Yeah.
instead of working together, throwing out the stuff that works, going after the stuff that throwing out the stuff that doesn't work, going after the stuff that does work, because that's how scientists work.
Yeah.
Scientists naturally converge on problems very quickly because it's what drives them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And to separate them into competing teams and give them little bits of money is to say we don't want to solve this problem.
That's fascinating. That I love that perspective. That's so fascinating. And you know, just kind of a maybe a side tangent, slightly related, but one thing that I've been interested in is like you hear a lot about like, oh, donate to cancer research and stuff like that, and it's like you rarely hear about spinal cord injury research. And I was just thinking like the other day, like, why is that? Isn't that odd?
It's all money. If if you could think of, if somebody could think of a way to cure spinal cord injury that required you to take a pill
Yeah,
3 times a day for the rest of your life, we'd have a cure.
that's so true.
But if you have a cure that is just one procedure and done, they won't even go after that. In fact, there was a famous thing a couple of years ago. Who was one of the major brokerage houses, Goldman Sachs, one of those, who one of their advisors said that cures really are not profitable. We don't want to be going after cures. We want to go after treatments
Mhm.
because treatments are profitable.
Yeah, yeah,
There is no profit in cures.
yeah,
And spinal cord injury it's one of those things that you either cure it or you don't.
yeah,
And
yeah,
the same thing with a lot of cancers.
Yep.
Yeah, gosh, I'm going through that right now. Like, what one of the first things that the doctor did when I told him about what was going on is he thought I had vertigo, and he's like, take this vertigo medication. I was like, great, will this solve my problem? And he's like, no, that this will just help with it, help reduce the symptoms. And it's like,
Treating
I
symptoms.
hate that system. It's so broken.
Yeah.
And there are certain conditions where reducing the symptoms, that's all you can do.
Mm,
Okay, that's fine.
mm,
But again, in what I find in pharmaceuticals, what I find in medicine is the individual doctor themselves, the individual nurse, they want to help you.
yeah.
They want to cure you. But the overall system doesn't.
Mhm.
The overall system wants to build procedures,
Yeah.
right? That's really what they're geared for.
Yeah.
They're not outcome based. If we had an outcomes based system, and don't ask me how you come up with that, but if the health of your patient governed how much you made versus how many procedures you did,
Yeah.
we'd have a very different world.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's the other thing that's interesting is going through all this, all these medical appointments. I'm looking at the medical bill, and you know, I have a deductible and all that with my insurance, and it's like my first thought as soon as I saw that number was, but I'm not cured yet. Like
Yeah.
I'm still like I'm still going through this. They still haven't figured out what's wrong with me, and it's like, how? Why am I paying for this?
Well, and then you've got to figure out what the bills actually mean.
Yeah.
And if you're being charged the right amount, et cetera. I have to
You have to make sure
I
it's
have to
coded
share
right.
just to give you an idea of how ridiculous our medical costs are in this country. I for obvious reasons have looked at, where would be the safest place for somebody with a spinal cord injury to live if it wasn't for the US. Like if I decided I wanted to leave the country, right?
Yeah.
We have friends in Mexico, we have friends in Canada to look into it. So Mexico unfortunately has a pre-existing condition exclusion.
Mm,
So even though they have socialized medicine, anything related to my spinal cord injury wouldn't be covered, right?
interesting.
So I'm like, well, but in Canada has a right to healthcare. So if you go there, even if as long as you have a residence card, you get medicine regardless. You have a right to it.
But if you're a visitor in Canada and you wind up in a hospital, you're covered.
Mm,
But the thing I looked into though was, well, okay, so why don't I compare the cost to pay for my spinal cord injury, which let's put in a couple emergency room visits a year, let's assume I got a wheelchair, blah, blah, blah. And let's compare the cost in Mexico out of pocket.
mm-hmm.
It's literally almost identical to my premium deductible and maximum out of pocket in the US.
Mm,
So literally for the cost of my healthcare in the US, I can cover it out of pocket in Mexico with no insurance.
wow. Yeah, you know, I bought glasses like a couple years ago, and like it was like, oh, this is an $800 pair of glasses, but you can get it for 200, and it's like there is zero chance that you're making like 500% just off the $200. Like, and like your margins are crazy. You're getting these pairs of glasses for $1 probably. Like it doesn't take that much to make, and there's not a lot of engineering that goes along and like how to how to make a pair of glasses and all that. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it's nuts.
Well, do you use a slide board?
I do not
Okay,
know.
but you know what it is,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so
Yeah. Can you share with what it is for those that
so
don't?
slide board is a piece of wood or plastic that's approximately 24 to 48 inches long, depending on which size it is, and maybe 6 to 8 inches wide with a hand grip in it. And you use that if you don't have, if you can't walk or whatever, you use that to transfer from one surface to another.
Mhm,
You slide it under your leg and you slide your butt along it. Okay.
mhm.
These are not high tech things.
No.
They're
They
boards.
cost over $100.
Holy
There's
moly.
no reason for that.
It's a
There's
board.
just
It's
no
a
reason.
Marx varnish board, and they're like $120.
That's crazy. Yeah, it's nuts.
Well, we use one-handed cutting boards in
You
our
might as well
cooking
buy a
classes.
skateboard.
Yeah, I mean, we use these one-handed cutting boards in our cooking classes that are a piece of plastic with a kind of a what do you call that? A wedge,
Vice.
a vise to
Yeah.
hold something, and then some pins that come up through the bottom. But it
So you can like
suction
stab
cup
a
to the
potato on it and cut
and
it.
cut it,
Yeah.
and it can suction cup to the table. They're almost $100.
Wow.
There's
It's
absolutely no reason for
it's the
this.
kind of board. It's literally
It's
not
like
big.
it's
And
not
it's
even
nylon.
12 inches square.
It's a
Right.
12-inch piece of nylon and it's $100.
Are you making these products?
No.
No, but I actually really would like to make one-handed cutting boards because, again, the scientist thing, I hate plastic cutting boards.
Yeah.
They are just
Butcher block would be nice.
all kinds of ways bad.
The toxins and
Yeah,
all that.
and
Yeah.
and and it's funny because it is counterintuitive to a lot of people that things like bamboo and wood would be actually safer to use
Yeah.
just because the bacteria get entrapped in there.
Yeah.
Um, and it's better for your knives and all that stuff too.
Yeah.
But, it's just anything that's for somebody with a disability.
Yeah.
The price is exponentially higher,
Mhm.
no matter how simple it is.
Yeah. Interesting. I love this conversation so far. One of the things that I do usually part of the way through the podcast, I always ask how long you think we've been going for.
No idea.
No idea. You want to take a guess?
90 minutes.
90 minutes? Do you have
Hour. I don't know.
an hour and 44 minutes so far?
Hey, look at
I went
Yeah.
on The Price is Right.
Yeah, you did.
that. You went over it.
No, I
You
didn't.
did go over it, yeah.
That's
Uh,
nice.
yeah, I always find, whenever I do these, like a lot of people are like, oh, I have no idea what I'm going to talk about for this long or whatever else. And it's like, we haven't even got into your nuts, your bolts and nuts business and,
Yeah.
and all that. So, but I do want to take a little detour and get into something a little bit lighthearted. And it's time for our Wheelie Bad Jokes segment. So here's how Wheelie Bad Jokes works is I'm going to tell you a Wheelie Bad joke. I want you to rate the joke on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best. And if you have a joke that you want to tell back, then you're welcome to. If not, no worries. Most people do not have a Wheelie Bad joke that they want to tell. So you ready for the Wheelie Bad joke?
I'm ready.
Ready.
Okay. The Wheelie Bad joke is the internet connection at my let me start over. The Wheelie Bad joke is the internet connection at my farm is really sketchy. So I moved the modem to the barn. Now I have stable Wi-Fi.
All right, you made me laugh. I'm going to give you a 5.
I give you at least a 6.
Okay, I'll take it. These aren't necessarily my jokes. I find them on the internet. Logan Lyle is a really awesome guy that tells a lot of bad jokes, and I get a lot of these from him. So do want to give him credit. So anyway, yeah, it was. I figured it was appropriate for you guys running a farm and all that. So
Yeah, definitely.
I appreciate it. Do you have a Wheelie Bad joke that you have in your head, or
Mine is a New Mexico specific one.
I mean,
So in New Mexico, you have pinyon trees
yeah,
with pine nuts
Uh-huh.
come from. So if you have a, 2 pine nuts in one hand and one in the other, what do you have?
what?
A difference of opinion.
Ah!
There's my see that I can remember that one. So
I used to work with a couple guys who had an ongoing contest between the two of them to come up with the worst joke. And I was not privy to many of them because they worked at NIST for many years before I did. But the one I remember was these 2 truckers are heading down the road. The guy in the passenger seat says, "Hey, Bob, did you see that sign? It said the bridge up ahead is an 11-foot clearance and we're 13." He said, "I don't see any cops."
That's a good one. I don't see any cops. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, I appreciate you sharing your jokes. Most people, like I said, don't have it. So,
I
what?
can never remember a punchline is the problem.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I have mine written down, so I don't forget. So, okay, let's get into your farm. Well, yeah. Do you have a preference getting into the nonprofit or the business first or anything like that?
Do you?
I don't
No.
have a preference one way or the other.
All
Really.
right, let's get into to bolts to nuts.
The
So
name.
what's that?
First, we need to explain the name for those who aren't old enough to have heard the term soup to nuts.
Yeah.
But that's what it's a play on. It's an old term, soup to nuts, which just meant A to Z, which is another way of saying we're kind of attention deficit on the farm. We do too many things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fun.
What bolts to nut or soup to nuts? Do you know what?
Yeah, that was an old saying.
It's an old
So it used to be.
I've heard the
meal
saying.
started with soup and ended with nuts is English. I think.
Oh,
And so it was from soup to nuts. It was from the start of the meal to the end little dessert.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't
so
think
it's kind of a play on the words. We do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
Yeah, I've heard the saying. I don't know that I've actually knew where it came from. So that's interesting. Okay. So how did all this start?
Well, we were looking for a place to build an accessible house because the house we had in Madeira was gorgeous and wonderful. And the only way to make it accessible is to drop an elevator in the middle of the great room that had 20-foot barrel ceilings with hand laid cherry wood. And it's like, so we can destroy this or we can try to do something different.
Yeah.
And so we bought this property and we were designing a home that would have had you know, our area and then a kind of separate guest wing that would have been like the extra bedrooms that we were designing to have it be fully accessible so that somebody with a recent acquired disability could come with a caregiver and maybe live with a family who'd gone through this and see little pieces of their life that they when they're ready to put it back together. And
That
that was our original dream.
and
Mm.
that came out of a specific thing. So the first couple years after the injury, I did physical therapy 3 days a week at a place in Blue Ash. That's where I met Abby, actually.
Mm.
Abby and I would share a mat with two different physical therapists on Fridays. We
Mm.
both went 3 days a week, but only one day was the same. And that's where we, came up with the idea for the kitchen, for instance. But what it was really born out of was like a lot of folks who go through traumatic experiences, I came out of it with an exaggerated. I was already a very empathetic person, but it's exaggerated now. I cry at commercials.
Mm.
It's maddening. But I was this physical therapy place was co-located with a place that does prosthetics, right? And so a lot of the people there are learning how to use their prosthesis and they're coping with that same kind of the grief of disability.
Mm-hmm.
So you're surrounded by people suffering. And I just wanted so badly to create a place where I could help with that. That even if you're in the midst of the suffering, you could come to a place and stay with a family that had been through it in
Mm.
this Airbnb we would have with your caregiver. And I would go off to work because I was working then, and you'd be able to do stuff on the farm like ride a hand cycle. That was the original vision. It was just to have this Airbnb to invite recently injured people to come with a caregiver.
Cool.
And then COVID hit, and then the builder came back with their proposal on the house, which was not double our budget, but 3 times. And then they tried to rationalize it or explained it by saying, oh, it's the amount of concrete because we were making insulated concrete forms for the house. And I'm like, you did not just do that to an engineer. I have to sit here now and calculate the concrete in front of you and find out that you're lying to me.
Yeah.
And I did.
Yeah.
And so between COVID and that, we put the whole thing on hold. And we actually stayed in Madeira. We moved our son out to the farm to start farm type stuff. And then we started hiring people who were out of work because of COVID,
Mm.
servers, musicians, and we had the coolest COVID experience because we had this pod, this community, where once you did your isolation for however many days it was, you were part of that pod, which means you were singing music by the campfires every night, the bonfires. You were cooking in the
Yeah,
kitchen with.
we had bonfires, food,
We
booze,
had this
music.
kumbaya farm all through COVID,
Mhm.
and we would do concerts for people who didn't socially distance, so they'd have to go sit over here.
Yeah.
But it was.
We had the space for it,
Yeah.
so that
Right.
was nice.
That's
But
awesome.
People could bring a picnic basket and
and then
enjoy
throughout
it.
all of that, well, how do we get this thing back on track for what we were going to do? Well, we built this processing center, 4,000 square foot, and that's where we hatched up the idea to put in this adaptive kitchen. And actually, Abby designed the kitchen.
Cool.
And initially it was just going to be, we're going to invite our friends with spinal cord injuries, and then it just snowballed into what we're doing now with all these different groups and these
Well,
open.
the very first class
The very
is like
was-
this is much more than spinal cord injury.
Mm.
Now the kitchen is set up fully for wheelchairs, so it's roll under French door ovens that open wide. It's a inductive cooktop that is height adjustable. The sink is height adjustable. The cabinet comes out and down.
Mm.
We have because all that was really expensive. We have 2 tables in the middle that are manually height adjustable.
Yeah.
And then we have a whole collection of tools, whether they're from quad tools that are designed for people with quadriplegia or one-handed cutting boards or just things that we found like box choppers or let's see how this works and just different tools that we use in these classes. But that very first class, it's like, wow, there's more here. And it just kind of snowballed from there with various disabilities. And it's all been mainly word of mouth.
Yeah.
I have to share my little other nerddom, and that is that there's something that happens in these classes with new folks, and I coined the term infinity moment. And the way I explain it is if you have no ability to do something, Either you've lost it through injury or illness, or you just never had that ability.
Mhm.
And you gain the ability to do it at all, right? And
Mhm.
you try to calculate what's the percentage increase in ability. Well, it's infinity because it's division by zero. So there's the geek. But when
Yeah.
you see this happen, like if you watch the video the first time Abby used an oven in 10 years,
Yeah.
you know what it is.
Yeah.
Everyone in that room was having endorphin spikes, seeing what she did.
Yeah.
And then the elation of that's the first time I've used an oven in 10
Right.
years, you know?
Right.
And so creating those moments is an amazing motivator.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I had a kid when I asked what their favorite thing about the day was, who was coaching tennis. She said, "I did something today that I never thought I could do." And it's like, oh,
Isn't
that's
it huge?
oh yeah, like it's so meaningful, and it's like, I think about it every time, like I'm like, oh man, I don't want to do this, or you have a hard
Mhm.
day or whatever. It's like, no, you think about that, and it's like it's such a motivator to just keep
Yeah.
you rolling forward. So
Yeah.
awesome. Um, cool. Well, that was kind of cool. So that's kind of how it started.
Mhm.
How was it expanded?
Well, we did get a fair bit of press early on, and so various groups started contacting us. Whether it was one of the things I thought was cool. I would get an email from somebody who's like, "Hey, I want to volunteer with you,"
Yeah.
and so that's how we've grown this great volunteer network. But we also had groups like Down Syndrome Association of Greater Cincinnati, Catholic Residential Services, Ohio Valley Residential Services, MetScore, LAD, Ken Anderson affiliation. Danny from Bridge
Yeah.
recommended us to Cincinnati Children's. Sorry, recommended us to Cincinnati Children's to take over their gardening program for their Be Well program.
Cool.
So we worked with them, and it's just grown from that.
Mm.
But then there's the commercial side of the farm. Is the intent there was to fund what we were doing with Bolt Strong with the revenue or the profits from the commercial side. That's
Mhm.
not a funding source at this point. What we did initially was we were pursuing and we got a hemp cultivation and a CBD processing license, and we developed a line of CBD salves and tinctures because I find them useful in dealing with spasticity and neuropathy, et cetera. And I thought and other things, and and it was something we thought would be a great thing to bring to the market that help people and then fund the programs we're doing. But
Mm.
that's all been kind of canceled. The Ohio legislature basically made every hemp business in the state illegal.
What?
And yeah, if there's any amount of THC in anything you're doing, it's now marijuana. So we can't when you go and when you grow hemp, it has a certain percentage of THC.
Yeah.
And it
So
used to be
nobody can even grow it
so
now.
nationwide it has to be 0.3% or lower. But in Ohio it has to be 0.
Oh,
So you can't even grow it here.
wow.
Okay, then if you have hemp and you process it, what you have to do is you have to either extract it, which makes it concentrate, or which they call crude, or you press it in a rosin press, and that makes rosin. And at that point, now you're way above the legal limit. You're at instead of 0.3%, you're at 3 or 4%.
Whoa.
And the only reason it drops back down is you make it into products like tinctures and salves, and that dilutes it. But
Right.
now all of those products are legal in Ohio. They're legal in other states,
Oh,
but we
They're
can't,
classified as intoxicating hemp products.
which they're not. But that's what the this was all came about because a fraction of the CBD business chased Delta 8. And if you're not familiar with Delta 8 is a psychoactive cannabinoid that occurs in very small amounts in hemp and marijuana. But CBD, which occurs in large amounts, can be turned into Delta 8 with the addition of a small amount of a certain acid.
mm,
All right. And now it becomes psychoactive. It gets you high the way THC does.
mm,
And now it falls into a wrinkle in the law where it's technically legal because it's CBD derived, not marijuana derived. So that
uh-huh,
was what they really needed to shut down or regulate.
uh-huh.
And in the process, they made every hemp business in Ohio illegal.
Oh,
And
that's
so all of our investments and equipment and everything are awash.
wow.
So now we're focused on our personal care product lines. We make things like deodorants, leave-in conditioners. We have some skin salves that are really promising. Some of the
Mhm.
things that aren't out yet that we can't talk about because we have to file some patent paperwork.
Sure.
And then
And then
there's the farm products, the produce, the
prepared
prepared
foods.
foods,
Mhm.
And
bespoke cooking classes, things of that sort.
Mhm.
and the final side of Bolts to Nuts is I run my consulting business through it where I do engineering work for outside companies.
Interesting. Okay. Um, wow, that's interesting. I'm not in that the CBD world enough to know that that was happening. I haven't kept up on that. I didn't.
Well, it's ironic because the voters of Ohio passed a law that made recreational marijuana legal,
Yeah.
and one of the clauses said that would give preference to disadvantaged businesses. The first thing they did was throw that out. They said, we're going to give all this business to these existing dispensaries who got us into office.
Uh,
And I mean, they used that law as the means for implementing these rules, which made our business illegal. So a law that the voters passed to expand the use of marijuana was used to put hemp out of business.
wow.
And they still didn't follow the will of the voters.
No, not at all.
Wow. Yeah. Interesting. Wow. Okay. Um, so as far as a farm goes, why why this direction? What was so gravitating towards this?
So the farm part of it kind of came from our oldest in a way,
Mhm.
because this was a person who, as a child, had this dream. I'm just gonna go live off the grid and have a farm and da 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 da. And when they came out to look at the property with me, they kind of came alive. So I'm like, okay, it's 11 acres. We could do something with this, and the idea of growing your own food, healthy food, uh,
Mhm.
teaching people how to do it,
Creating a
cre-
biodiverse.
creating restoring a biodiverse ecosystem. Uh, all these things that I've believed in that we could do, and so it all kind of came together there.
Cool.
And our property is interesting because we have the fields, we also have a small forested area, we have two ponds on it, we have a fairly diverse landscape as well. So there's a lot of things that can
But there's
be
also
done there.
something about it. People, and
There's something
it's strange how many people just have a sense of peace there. They really do, and
Mm.
we do too. That's what really sold it for me. Is there's
Yeah.
especially like sitting under big trees on a warm summer day, watching the branches sway above you. There's something that's mindfulness that's
Yeah.
better than just thinking about your breath.
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
and the idea of having this and being able to share all these different aspects of it,
yeah.
you know, um, that's where it kind of came from.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got chickens, and I'd never wanted chickens before.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
But I mean, sometimes some of our visitors will be, a quite elderly person who uses a wheelchair now because they're not walking anymore and grew up on a farm.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? We have off-road wheelchairs. You want to go out on the farm?
Yeah.
And that's such a fun thing to watch.
How many off-road wheelchairs do you have?
3.
You have 3. Wow.
one
That's
that belongs to Bolt Strong, and then the other two are ours.
And are they are they motorized kind of on steroids? Like you could go pretty fast with them or?
So
One you can go way too fast.
one of them, 2 of them go pretty darn fast. The first one, so like she said, 2 of them are ours. The first one I bought was an action track chair, which looks like a tank with tank treads and everything. It'll go just about anywhere, but it has no suspension, so it'll beat you up, and it doesn't go more than about 2 miles an hour, very
Yeah.
slow. The second one I bought off of eBay, and it was a Magic Mobility. They call it an X8 or an X8 Extreme.
Okay.
It's truly 4-wheel drive. It has 4 wheels. The joystick steers like a car. The front 2 wheels turn. It's not like a normal joystick. I mean, a normal wheelchair
Yeah.
where it's done by the revolutions on the wheels, right?
Mhm.
And so driving it is counterintuitive if you're a wheelchair driver because going backwards, you have to kind of like there's no wheel, right? You're going to go the opposite. It's kind of odd at first,
Yeah.
but it'll go very fast and it's got bouncy tires, so it's not going to beat you up or anything. That one's fun.
Okay.
And then the last one that was purchased for us by Christopher Dana Reeve Foundation,
Mhm.
that one will go pretty fast. It's not full 4-wheel drive, but it's got big fat tires, and
Yeah.
that's one most people take out onto the farm. And it's
Mhm.
fun being able to get people out there. Again, it's those things that I thought I'd never do it.
Yeah.
Whether it's getting somebody out in a wheelchair to hold a chicken and feed the sheep, or whether it's getting somebody with a stroke and a traumatic brain injury to hold a lamb for the first time in their life. Yeah, creating those kinds of moments are what it's all about.
Cool. You
Yep. So no, it's getting people out there who otherwise would never have had these experiences. I mean, let's face it, it's not like there's a lot of farms where you can go wheel up to it,
yeah,
and
right.
it's not 100% there. We're working, it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
But I mean, we lambed. We don't have any lambs right now, but we had lambed right before a kids class, and it was I don't remember what the circumstances were, the weather or something like that, but I ran to the barn and grabbed one of the lambs to bring up to show the kids,
Mm,
not thinking about how heavy this thing was gonna be after I had to go this distance.
yeah.
But, I mean, but for the kids to be able to come out and see this week-old lamb and pet it
Yeah.
and all that that's huge because these are experiences that were denied.
Yeah. Right.
And so that's where the farm aspect comes. I mean, we had the sheep because I had this brilliant idea that we had chickens and we needed to get livestock guardian dogs so that our chickens wouldn't be killed by hawks or coyotes.
Yeah.
And our breeder had lambed and was like, "Oh, do you want some lambs?" I'm like, "Sure, I'll make sheep's milk cheese."
Yeah.
And then I figured out that milking sheep is really hard.
Oh.
It's not the same as milking a cow.
Oh,
So we have
interesting.
a petting zoo,
Okay.
you know.
What all animals do you have and have you had?
We have the sheep, we have the livestock guardian dogs, the chickens, we have 1 rabbit,
Okay.
and, we have had guinea fowl that thankfully decided to go move to our neighbors.
Wait. What's guinea fowl?
Very loud.
Very loud birds. A lot of people use them as alarm birds, and they
Oh,
make horrible, horrible sounds, and I think we dodged a bullet there.
yeah.
If you've seen them, it was probably on some nature show. They flock in great big flocks. They look beautiful, but they're loud as heck.
Okay.
And then we have our barn cats, and they
Okay.
have very different personalities. Our
Yeah.
first one used to like me until we got the second one. The first one hates kids, and if there's kids on the farm, she goes upstairs in the barn and you don't see her.
Oh,
The second one is like, bring it on. She lets kids do anything to her.
cool.
She bites me. She
She does
plays
like
rough
she
with
does not
adults.
like adults.
She
Yeah,
plays rough with adults.
Yeah.
But with kids, she never bites, she never scratches. She lets them carry her around by her neck. It's
Yeah.
just bizarre.
What would you say the hardest thing to running this business is?
Making money.
Making money, yeah.
Well, it gets back to that bolts to nuts thing.
Yeah,
Doing so many different things, it's hard to concentrate as much as you need to.
right.
So yeah, I mean, it's another reason why looking to make Bolts strong, a professional organization with paid employees, is so attractive. Is let them run their thing. We'll come in and help when we can, but
Yeah.
we can go then tend to other things too and other projects.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, making money sounds like I think that's the story of everyone's life is like there's just not enough time in the day, right?
Yep.
Like it's like you want to do a whole bunch of different things. Same thing with the podcast is like there's so many things that I could do with it, but it's like I have a full-time job, I'm coaching tennis, I'm doing a
Yeah.
whole bunch of other things. So
Well, poor Yvonne. I mean, if anything falls through the cracks, somebody gets sick or can't come into the farm, and it's their day to do things. Of course, it falls to her.
yeah,
And she's the caregiver and the primary person running the business too, because I'm doing the consulting. So
yeah,
it's a lot.
yeah.
It's a lot. But
How many employees do you have?
Well, we've had as many as 4 at a time.
Okay.
But right now we have 1 full-time employee who happens to be our youngest.
Okay.
So, I am unpaid, of course.
Yeah.
when I was more gainfully employed, we had more employees because I was paying them out of what I was making.
Yeah.
The farm itself doesn't generate enough income at this point to pay for very many employees. That's why, finding ways to go down the professional road on the nonprofit side is so attractive. Is that
Because that does take a good part of my time, and it's volunteered time.
Yeah, right.
and I mean at this point, we've put an enormous amount of in-kind funding into the nonprofit. And so we do need to concentrate on our other sources of making income. So getting that thing sitting on its own 2 feet.
Yeah.
And we've got some great people. We know people who could run or who would love to run this thing for us.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
But you're asking about the farm. I will tell you, this past winter, having to go out and check on animals multiple times a day and put on all that clothing and freeze your butt off, I'm questioning my life choices,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
I can see that being quite challenging. Yeah. And then I think an eye opener, I hope an eye opener for some people is gonna be like, wait, there's there's a disabled person who's using a wheelchair and he's doing farming like that's kind of I don't know, like, kinda mind-blowing for people, I'm sure.
Well, and the truth is, I don't use the tractor at this point. It's on my list to actually use the tractor. I found one that I can use.
Yeah.
But, my role is more in, making the extracts and other things we do in the lab portion of the building. I'm much more adept there.
Yeah.
I mean, once upon a time, I did all those things, work construction, worked on cars, but it's so much harder to do from a wheelchair.
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah,
great I can tell you what to do,
yeah,
but that's about it.
yeah, interesting. Anything else on the business side before we get into Bolt Strong that you wanna mention?
Well, I mean, there's one thing that we do that it's not profitable or anything, but we've recently been guest chefs for a small company or small business in Hamilton, Ohio.
Oh,
They're called the Farmers Collective, and they do these um,
Supper
dinner
Club.
clubs, supper
Supper Club.
clubs, and so it's basically set up for 12 people, and it could be 12 people you don't know,
yeah,
and it's interesting because just people sign up and come to this, and so uh, Josh and Mindy have various chefs from around wherever to come and cater these dinners,
yeah.
and we've done it 5 times now. And one thing that's really nice is we do most of the prep work at our farm where it's accessible,
Oh,
but they have in the area where we prepare it, they have a table that Eric can use.
It's one of these
And
giant old farm tables, it's probably 6 feet by 14 feet or something ridiculous,
yeah.
but it's got a big overhang, so I can get under it and actually work.
Oh, interesting.
and it gives us that opportunity to work together on something in that creative space again,
Yeah,
because that's we used to cook together all the time.
yeah,
And so, creating this menu and having things ready on time and his ability to participate in that and then us doing it together, it's been really, really nice.
yeah.
It's a nice little bit of normalcy or the old days.
Cool.
Yeah, get
Okay.
a little snapshot of the old life.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Okay. Um, anything else about on the business side of things?
Got some new products coming up, so
New products. What
Yeah,
you touched on this. What products do you currently sell?
so for instance, spring is coming. We'll be making up a new batch of, what do you call it?
flea and tick
Flea and
repellent.
tick repellent using just extracts, basically, oils, essential
Okay.
oils. Works very well. But we make, like I said, personal care products that would include deodorants and leave-in conditioner,
Hand
hand
creams.
creams, face washes.
Okay.
Most of these are formulated by our son, who has a very strong interest in this and has a whole. They're all done to cosmetic grade standards, so it's all really fun stuff.
With minimal ingredients and naturally derived as much as possible.
Yeah,
Cool.
that product line is branded as our wild crafted product line, so it's as close to natural as you can get with minimal preservatives, but you have to have some to meet cosmetic industry standards.
Oh,
Then we have prepared foods, and that's all Yvonne. It's frittatas, it's soups. They're all homemade. Depending on the time of the year, if we're doing farmers markets, we make these wonderful sandwiches and other stuff like that.
mhm.
Um, what else am I leaving out?
Uh, well, like I said, we do bespoke cooking classes.
We do all kinds of produce and eggs and all the normal things we grow. We also sell either at farmers markets or right on the farm.
Cool.
And we host events at the farm as well.
Yeah.
So we've done for one of the local synagogues, we've had a Shabbat service on a Friday night where 40 people came in and they had their service and we cooked dinner together and had dinner together.
Cool.
So
You ever thought about doing weddings?
We have.
it's a possibility. It's just that takes a little bit different permitting. So
Yeah.
I just have to figure all that stuff out.
Interesting.
Different
Okay.
permitting and different insurance.
Yeah.
It, yeah, it may be, and we fall in an odd thing. Like if we had a neighbor who had a big wedding and they had to go through all sorts of hoops, and whether we'd have to go through the same hoops, I don't know. We have certain exclusions because we are a commercial farm. We don't have to do as much as a normal resident would have to do.
Right.
We have a lot more freedom over like building things and whatnot.
Interesting. Okay.
But
Cool.
and then I guess the other stuff that the farm sells, like I said, is I do my consulting through it too. So
Yeah.
not really a
And we
farm
we both
product,
do
but yeah,
consulting.
we
So
both do.
Yeah. Okay. I'll ask you this again at the end of the podcast, but if people wanted to buy your product or scope out what you're doing, where can they go?
they can go to the website to find out what we have. But we also will be starting at Loveland Farmers Market on Tuesdays. The first Tuesday of May runs through the end of October. and that market goes 3 to 6:30 by the bike trail. We also are going to do the Mainville Farmers Market. There's some other little markets, and we'll post those up on our website and on social media.
Cool.
And at any point, anybody can call me or email me and ask what we've got,
Yeah.
and ask if I can do things. And
Do you do special requests?
I do,
Yes.
I do.
Okay, interesting.
And
Yeah.
actually, there's another one. I have a garden club coming in a couple weeks. They're going to have their meeting there, and we're going to cook a meal together and
Yeah.
tour the farm and see how that goes.
But with the creams and other personal care products, we do private labeled using custom formulations, like
Custom
massage.
scents and
A certain massage parlor wants a certain scent profile. We'll do that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Cool. What's the website?
There's bolts to nuts with you can do it bolts with a 2 nuts or bolts to nuts. That'll get you there .com.
and it's NUTZ as in zebra.
Okay.
And boltstrong.org will get you there.
Yep.
And then from that site, you can just say shop, and that will take you to our store, which is actually wildcraftedb2n.com, which I won't ask anyone to remember. Just go to Bolts and Nuts and go shop, and it'll get you there.
Yeah, yeah. I'll have
And from the Bolts to Nuts website, you can also get the Bolt Strong.
Cool.
So.
Yeah, I'll have the links in the description so people can go down there and click. They don't have to like remember this, but
Write that down.
yeah.
Where's the pencil?
Okay, so talk to me about the nonprofit then.
Okay, so that kind of came out of the idea that we cooked together, and that was something that was taken from us with Eric's accident, and then meeting Abby at physical therapy. Abby loved to cook, and so we would talk about all because at first I would take him to physical therapy before he got his hand control license and that. So I knew Abby, and we would talk about various things, and the other thing again, food is medicine. And I'll give you my other lecture. Like the act of sharing a meal together is a fundamental act of wellness. It is fundamental to humanity. You break bread, you share meals together, you create together, and that is something that is often either through social or physical barriers removed from people with disabilities lives. That community sense, that act of wellness, and so it just seemed natural to us to like, how can we help people cook? This was something that the three of us, Abby, Eric, and I were passionate about. And it started there. You want to add to that?
Let me just detour briefly real quick so I've had a bunch of disabled people on, and one of the things that we were talking about is I think it's absolutely critical when someone gets injured to get into a disabled community, because I think it's you share a lot of commonalities with, and like you learn how to do things that like you wouldn't maybe normally, and you'll be held accountable to a different level, and like, hey, no, you can actually do this. I know your disability, I actually have it too, and you can do this, and stuff like that. And I just think that's so cool. And like one of the things, but before I heard about you guys, that I talked to with I think it was Jake Counts, and he was basically saying like there's not many other places outside of sports that a disabled person can go to be around other disabled people.
Correct.
And it's so fascinating, and like you were talking about breaking bread, and it's like that's part of the camaraderie with sports is you go, you have a game, a match, whatever it is, and then you go out with everybody, and you have a meal and stuff like that. And it's like that the gap that you guys are filling is very, very rare. It's very niche, and I think that's so cool that like you're doing this and able to fill. I hope you guys can scale it to be nationwide, statewide. All that. It's so cool. Anyway, but going back to the original question of like, tell me about your nonprofit.
So, what I like about it, what really gets me charged about it is we're simultaneously imparting skills that are really meaningful. Maybe not, every case meaningful in as tangible a way as people might think. Like it's not going to change your financial future or anything. And in a lot of cases, people are not going to cook regularly because it's very difficult. adaptive or accessible doesn't mean easy. It just means
Mhm.
possible. And
Mhm.
so, for instance, I can't tell you how one of our early students um, sent us a Christmas card. It was one of those with all the pictures on it, and every picture was from a class.
Mm.
When you get that, it really warms your heart. And this is somebody, it takes him probably 2 hours to make his dinner.
Mm.
And he doesn't do it very often, only when his parents are out of town and when there's going to be a caregiver there to help clean up in the morning, whatever. But he
Mhm.
gets such meaning out of it, to be able to cook for himself, to come up with an idea, and then to put that into something. I mean, that skill will be with him forever.
Mhm.
And even if, like I said, if it's something that's so difficult that you don't do it all the time, I mean, I think of one particular person who thought he couldn't do anything because he can just barely move one arm, but we between a quad knife and a bunch of Velcro, we had him dicing an onion, and he was over the moon
That's
about it.
so cool.
Well, he's probably not going to cook on a regular basis, but he's done it. He
Mhm.
he came to a group that he was going to watch, and he made a meaningful contribution to a meal that he then shared with people.
That's so
And
cool.
that just makes a person so much more seen.
Mhm.
Well, and I think about we started classes in August of 22.
Mhm.
And so we had one a month, August, September, October, November, December. In January, we had our first class, and a lot of people came back in. One of the coolest moments for me of that class was people sharing what they had gotten for Christmas or for whatever gift that was something they learned about in the class that they could use at home.
Mm.
And this person that Eric was talking about, their Christmas card being all the classes, I got we got a text on the 26th talking about how excited we were because they got this inductive cook or inductive portable burner to
Yeah.
use at home, and they made the green shakshuka breakfast that we had made in a class 2 months before for his family.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that was like, okay, we're on something. We're
Yeah.
onto something here.
There's this concept, right, that even the small things you do create little ripples that can join with others to form waves, right?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what we're doing here in a very tangible way. You have somebody who comes to a class who really just wants to watch and they're just seeing what it's all about. Somebody goads them into learning how to mince an onion. A
Mhm.
week later, they're teaching somebody how to mince an onion. These are the ripples that really go out there and make a difference. Just you don't get to see it right away. You might not even see it in your lifetime, but the impact you have on a person by seeing them, by imparting not just an ability, but a community,
Yeah.
that changes courses of lives.
Mhm.
And it gives me purpose.
Yeah. So how often do you do these cooking classes?
So for Bolt Strong, we have one adult and one kids class a month,
Mm.
usually on a Sunday.
So these are the open
These are
classes,
the open
any
class.
disability, and it's for the person with the disability and their loved ones. So it
Uh,
could be their siblings, it could be their parents, their grandparents, their caregiver, whatever.
And kids classes often get fairly large because
Yeah.
siblings aren't included, and I think that's very important.
yeah.
Um, we also one of the things that we do with our classes, we try mainly to have disabled instructors
Mm.
because learning from your peers is really important. And
Yeah.
for kids, the parents of kids with disabilities often only know other parents, adults,
Yeah.
as those as parents of disabled kids.
They don't know
They
adults
don't
with
know adults with
disabilities.
Right.
disabilities who are functioning out in the world and who are doing things. So to come to this class and have, Eric be an instructor or have, and these are for visible and invisible disabilities, but
Yeah.
to see somebody with arthrogryposis helping out in a class, to see somebody who's a paraplegic or spina bifida or
It
has
gives
a,
them a vision for their kids that they never had before.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
never get that opportunity in the circles that the parents with kids with disabilities don't generally meet adults with disability.
Right.
I don't know why, but the fact of the matter is, in this country, the vast majority of any program for people with disabilities is run by able-bodied people,
Mhm.
probably 99% or something.
Yeah.
And so this is a distinguishing feature of what we do, and it's one of the more important ones,
Yeah.
is that the role model is the disabled person.
Yeah.
I refer to myself as the able-bodied lackey.
Yeah.
And actually, we need them because when we get that many wheelchairs in the kitchen, sometimes you can't get anywhere. Hey, I
Mm.
need you to go get that thing over there for me.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I
And,
can't hop across these.
and I need my steel toes.
Until I get my levitating chair.
Steel toes so you don't get your feet run over.
So,
Absolutely.
so those are our Bold Strong classes, but we also have outside groups that come in, like Down Syndrome Association of
Mm.
Greater Cincinnati, Residential Services, LAD, have a group coming in from Spina Bifida Coalition this month. So in a given month, overall, we can have anywhere between 5 and 10 classes.
Cool.
We do about 60 classes a year is what I figured.
Mm.
We're somewhere north of 200 at this point.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
But
it's
we would love to do programming like we've said, every day of the week if we could.
Yeah.
and something that we've recently added, and I did want to throw this in, is so visual impairment was something that was outside of our wheelhouse, and what I will tell you is that I didn't know much about many of these disabilities
Mhm.
until we started teaching these classes. Like I knew nothing about EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Ehlers-Danlos
Yeah.
syndrome.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about this, but we've had multiple participants with us. And now I've learned, there's all these different types of it and how it affects people. And we actually had a viewing of the movie Complicated, which talks about EDS and people living with this. And it was very eye opening. But I've learned about all these things and different comorbid conditions and how to help people navigate nutrition in this. But visual impairment was something that was kind of didn't know anything about.
Yeah.
But this past fall, we had a occupational therapy doctoral student do their capstone project with us, and her project was to make us visually impaired friendly,
Mm.
and she did a bang up job. It's great. We've had now 4 or 5 strictly visual impairment classes, and then we've integrated people who are completely blind into our regular
Open
classes,
class.
into our
Cool.
open classes.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Wow,
And
that sounds awesome.
and then that's a big thread there too is the open classes being truly open. So it's
Mm.
any disability. So integrating them there was very important. But the other thing we do along the same vein is we take food allergies, food sensitivities, et cetera, into consideration. And so that
Mm.
we will do a class with all kinds of people with food allergies, and no one will ever know anyone has a food allergy. We make it transparent. We're having cornbread stuffing for Thanksgiving, rice stuffing. We just the menu changes.
Mm.
Nobody knows that there's a person there that's a celiac, and they don't feel singled out. They don't feel like anyone's sacrificed for them.
Mm.
It's just transparent, and it's awesome. Every once in a while, we have to do things like you can't roll that dough on this surface because this is gluten-free pizza dough and that one's not. And all the flour we're using is gluten-free. The dust
But we
around.
generally try to make that, especially with kids' classes, we generally try to make that transparent
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
because these kids have enough to worry about without having, oh, you can have that, but not that.
Mm.
Let's just make it all transparent.
That's awesome.
We get to be more creative with the menu that way.
Yeah, yeah. One of the interesting things, so with my adaptive tennis and pickleball classes that I do, I often find so we have like wheelchair impaired standing, and then we have blind and visually impaired, and then we have like adaptive catch-all essentially. And those adaptive classes have been some of the most challenging classes that I've taught, but also the most rewarding. Like it's super fun to be able to coordinate because one, you need to be extremely volunteer heavy, and you need to cater to whatever kid's disability is, or whatever kids needs are, right? And it's a lot of people think it's like, oh, it's full court tennis hitting and all that, and it's like, no, sometimes it's just rolling the ball back and forth, and rolling the ball along a line. If you can't do that, it's like bouncing the ball into a bucket or something like that, right? Like it's various different things, and trying to figure out how to adapt it the best possible way so that they can have fun and just interact with a tennis racket and a ball. Like those are so rewarding. So my question to you is, those catch-all classes that you guys do, everybody welcome,
Mhm.
are those some of the most challenging classes? And
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, okay.
But that's part of the appeal, right? Because I think the group creative problem solving
Yeah.
is critical to the process
Yeah.
because that's where more rapport is built than anywhere else. When people are chiming in with ideas or here's how I did it. Because you got a quad over there, a quad over there. Well, here's how, and then this person. It's amazing how it works.
Yeah.
Because you get a chance for real discourse and it's that creative process. I think anytime you put a group of people into a creative process together, magical things happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have several people with developmental disabilities who come to these classes and they're regulars, but the friendships they've formed, they are seen for who they are.
Cool.
For probably and for some of them for the first time. because we do shy away from seeing people with developmental disability.
Mhm.
And, having them be active participants in this and making decisions and choosing things and working with somebody. It's a beautiful thing
Yeah.
because it is. I mean, I know the difference it's made in several people's lives, and
And it's a internally very nurturing group and community. You know, when somebody accomplishes something, there's congratulations, great job. You know, I mean,
Mhm.
it's very aware of what's going on around and being involved in each other's spaces
Mhm.
in a very synergistic and positive way. It's really like I said, there are days when I'm just tired from this and I really don't want to do a class. And as soon as it starts, I am rejuvenated.
Yeah.
I am back. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool.
mm, but try running a kid class where you have 22 kids plus all the extra adults and all that in there and the volunteers
Yeah.
and.
It can get pretty hectic,
It
but
gets
It
hectic,
yeah.
and then we go out on the farm to go collect eggs while
Yeah.
everybody's still there and that kind of stuff,
yeah.
so and then I have a glass of wine.
Yeah,
So
there you go. How do you prioritize safety? Or how do you make sure people are safe as they're cooking?
That's a really good question because one of the things that we also do is just about anything. So if you can't use your arms to carry something and put it in an oven, you have to use your mouth and you want to try it in our kitchen, you can.
Mm,
But we're going to spot you very closely.
yeah.
I mean, and that's really what it is. It's you can do anything. Let's get everything set up. We're going to spot you, make sure it's safe.
Yeah.
But and that's really the difference in I think what we do in our cooking classes could be extrapolated to education in general for people with disabilities
Mm,
because it's very tailored to the individual's abilities and interests.
sure.
Right. So, could you imagine if you had an education and training system where it sets people with disabilities onto a trajectory that's governed by their abilities and their interests, but the training is tailored to them?
That's cool.
You know, like I don't tell you how to use a knife. I
Mm,
describe it and then I hold the tip down while you chop with the other side, learn to chop.
mm,
You know, so it's very hands-on. I think if we could extend that attitude, that approach to education and training for people with disabilities, we'd have huge successes in
mm,
the workplace, not just with that initial job, but with the ongoing progression of jobs, because now you're giving them a skill they're interested in and a trajectory they can see, and there's chance for advancement, which is often not the case for somebody working with a disability.
yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So you have to be it sounds like you're extremely volunteer heavy as well in order to be able to cater it to
Hmm.
the individual itself,
Yep.
especially when you run these big classes.
Yeah, and if I have a class during the week where I don't have as many volunteers, I do more of a round robin style. So, in a large class, we might have people. There's this station, this station, this station, this, and you rotate through the stations, so you get to try everything.
Mm,
But in a class like, say, for residential services, where I may not have as many volunteers or caregivers there to help me with things, I'll do it as a round robin where we each peel a piece of garlic and then chop it, and then that goes around, and then
yeah.
one at a time,
Uh,
and then we take turns coming up to the cooktop. You're going to add this spice, and then we're going to stir it. Then you're going to, then you sit down and it just rotate through where everybody gets to participate.
yeah.
But it allows me to have that one-on-one uh, perspective to make sure that they're safe.
Right.
In in a lot of the classes, the one-on-one may be limited to one particular station where we're doing a skill,
Yeah.
you know, and then everything else is a little more chaotic. Okay, you guys go
Mhm.
and chop stuff, and somebody will keep an eye on it and help them with that.
Mhm.
But the truly real hands-on stuff is usually in the larger classes, isolated to say one station where we're learning to do something.
Cool.
We're going to learn to saute, or we're going to learn to mince something. You know?
Yeah.
Like for our kids' class, we had a station where they were making arancini. So we did our last class was Italian food,
Okay.
and so we're making caponata and marinara and pasta and what am I forgetting? There's something I'm forgetting, but it doesn't matter. But then we were making arancini, which is like risotto balls, right?
Mm,
And so that was a cooktop one-on-one kind of thing, which wound up being three inductive burners because it was going slower. But it's like Eric was manning the station where a kid would make their rice ball, put it in there, and cook it for themselves.
Learn how to fry, turn it and fry it and all that kind
yeah.
of stuff.
And then we had other volunteers doing. And then we expanded. And in this class, it was the first time we included some of our older students to kind of be junior instructors.
Yeah.
And that went very well.
Yeah, it
Sure.
did.
And that's a so that's something we didn't hit on. It's a natural progression. In our adult classes, it's a natural progression that people start to volunteer in the kids' classes.
Mm.
Yep.
And I think it's a natural progression that these kids who are starting to maybe age out of the kids' classes, that they start becoming more role models in those classes.
Taking
And
on
then,
leadership roles.
yeah, and then maybe they go to the adult classes, or maybe they take this out into the world with them and do something different with it. But it's not just giving them the cooking skills or giving them the social experience. It's also giving them leadership,
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
know,
And
mentoring.
what's really fun to see is, say, a kid who came to us maybe a year or two ago who struggled with maybe some behavioral issues when things get frustrating, grow into this person who clearly has leadership potential.
Cool.
It's really cool to watch that.
Yeah. That's awesome. Um, w Let me look at my questions, see if I have any. Um, what impact would you say you're most proud of so far? That's a really broad question, but you got a specific example for that?
I'm trying to think. The relationships that are formed. I mean, I think that that's the thing I always come back to is, there's in the kids' classes, there's families with just very different disabilities for their children, but they do things together as a group of friends.
Yeah.
Um, the same thing with the adult classes is, like, you know, seeing that somebody who comes to our classes from Columbus has made friends with classmates in Cincinnati and can call them when they need something. Just and, I don't know, but I find out about it later or something. But just knowing there's these connections where people are forming relationships and building a community that they didn't have before,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
and
awesome.
and being seen. I mean that whole thing of being seen.
Mm.
I mean it's a bigger thing to me now than it used to be
Mm.
because I didn't really understand it as much. But, the need to be seen, like, a lot of parents with kids with disabilities, like who are on the autism spectrum and that, they have a difficult time going out to a restaurant because what
Yeah.
if their kid has an outburst
Right.
or something and people judge you?
Mhm.
So that's one time when you don't want to be seen.
Right.
But, just meeting somebody where they're at and just realize, hey, they just had to have a stim that had to make them feel more comfortable.
Mhm.
You know, being seen for who you are is really important.
Mm.
And I love that this community, that's the impact. This community has been developing organically on its own. It has its own momentum
Mm.
where people are interacting.
Cool. Eric, you have anything else to add?
Sure. So I've long used this analogy for life. I'm big on analogies. Yvonne will give me grief for it, but life is kind of like a moving mosaic, right? And each of us is a node in that mosaic, casting out these tiles into this moving mosaic. And we have the choice what kind of tiles we cast out: dark, brooding ones, or
Mhm.
happy ones, joyful, kind ones, whatever. And we can't really affect anything but the nodes around us because it's just massive mosaic. We can only change what we're doing ourselves in this giant mosaic.
Love that.
And what I'm proud of is that we've shown that not only is there this need there, but by throwing out these
Thank you.
right tiles at our node here in this great mosaic, it can spread to the nodes around us.
Yeah.
And that's the power that I see in it.
That's so awesome. Love that. Um, what are would you say for someone who knows nothing about adaptive cooking? What what are some of the what are like three tools that you would say are like the most interesting or unique or um, useful or to take it wherever you want?
Well, it's going to depend on what your needs are.
Sure.
So I would say if you're a quadriplegic, probably at least two of those things would be a one-handed cutting board and a quad tools knife.
Mhm. Can you explain what those are?
So the one-handed cutting board it's set up, it's, most of them are nylon, and it has, like like
Clamp,
a
vice.
clamp or a vise that you can put, like, a loaf of bread in to cut it.
Mm,
And it has prongs on it that you can set, like, a potato or tomato on so you can cut it in slices. So you can use it with just one hand. It's really useful for people who have had strokes. It's really useful for somebody who has to use both hands to do something. So, and a quad knife, there's a company called Quad Tools,
mhm.
and what these do is they go onto your arm. So a quadriplegic can not necessarily, if you put your arms out, you can't lift your wrists up, but you can do this motion, which is the opposite.
Yeah.
And so there's tools where they have that kind of wrist activated that way.
Mhm.
But a quad knife goes on your arm, and there's rings that hold your hand to it, so you can put your hand, and then you can use your other hand to sorry to use it. It's a two-handed mechanism. And so I think those are tools that make a difference. I mean, the next thing I always think of for anybody with any kind of disability in general is an inductive cooktop
Mm,
of some kind, because induction cooking is inherently safer,
yeah.
especially if you don't have core or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because you have to, if you're not, your body is not ferromagnetic, so you're not going to burn yourself on it unless it's had a heat transfer from a pan.
Yeah. Yeah. Just so everybody knows, induction, I think most people probably know, but you can basically touch it with your hand and it's not going to burn you.
Right.
So yeah, so what it is an inductive cooktop. An induction it generates an electromagnetic field that is reflected in a ferromagnetic material. The
Mm,
pan is a ferromagnetic material, iron. Um, your hand is not, paper is not, glass is not,
mhm.
plastic is not. So you can set all that on a burner and turn it on, and it's not going to do anything because it's not ferromagnetic.
Yeah.
And so the heat is actually generated in the ferromagnetic pan.
Mm,
So while the burner generates no heat of its own, there will be heat transfer from the pan to that surface.
right.
So if I take the pan off and I put my hand on that, it hurts,
Yeah.
but it doesn't damage the tissue.
Mm,
So it's a safety mechanism from that perspective too. There's no open flame, there's no elements
yeah.
that's hot. So there's that aspect.
Interesting.
You can't catch your house on fire by leaving a piece of paper on it.
Yeah. So the quad knife, and just forgive my analogy, but doesn't it kind of look like Wolverine in a way?
In a way, a single bladed
Yeah,
Wolverine.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
But
Eric, do you have any other tools that you
yeah,
think of?
I'm gonna take a different tact here. So one of the things that dawned on me early on, especially in talking with Abby about cooking, was how hard it is for somebody with a disability to make pasta because of eating a big pot of boiling water, right? How
Yeah.
you navigate that, right? And so I even went to the point of designing a boiler that would work in a sink that you could hit a button and it would drain in the sink and all this, right? Well, guess what? There's another thing that solves this problem, and we've been doing a lot of it, and it's one pot dishes, one pot pastas. You can do the whole. I mean, it's not a tool; it's nothing else. But one of the
No,
things
it
that's
it is a tool.
transformed a lot of our students' lives because you can make all these different pasta dishes, and it's just one pan. You just put the right amount of liquid in. At the end, the pasta's done, and it's all kind
Grain.
of
It could
creative.
be any
Could be a
grain.
grain, but it
And there's no water draining from it
right.
because it
There's no
seeps out.
water draining at all. It's all cooked in.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so I've got this great design I don't need because now we can do just a one pot dish.
Yeah.
It is awesome because you only have one pot to clean at the end.
Yeah.
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 So, I mean, I think that's probably my favorite thing. I mean, there's lots of neat gadgets and everything, but this is a real practical thing for people who
Mm,
want to cook their meals after work on a daily basis.
mm,
One
mm.
pot dishes.
Interesting.
And I use a lot of one pot recipes for our weekday classes, especially with adults with developmental disabilities who want to live independently,
Hmm.
because this is a great way for them to learn how to do something different,
Yeah.
and they have multiple meals from it if they want.
Yeah. I have a cooking story that I think you might find funny, but it's also like, so I have a stove, and so I have a stove, like let's say it's right here, and then behind me is my sink. It's not next to each other or anything like that. And I was boiling some noodles, and I I can move my legs a little bit, right? And well, was I able to in the no, I really wasn't. So, like, my legs don't go down far enough to, like, actually hit the ground, my feet, and so I had this boiling pasta, and my thought was I was gonna push off and and do, like, a kind of a 360, and I pushed off, and I turned, and my chair stopped in the middle of the kitchen.
You're
Oh,
stuck there.
no.
You're just stuck there now. What do
Yeah.
I do? Oh my
Yeah.
god.
And so I have this boiling pot. I don't have like any oven mitts that I have on my lap so I can set it on my lap or anything like that. I thought I was just gonna be able to like spin and get to the drain. And I'm thinking like, okay, what do I do? And again, I'm just like trying to think of all these possibilities of like things like could I put the handle in my mouth and like kind of you know
Wow.
and, like maybe like do something with my wheel. And the thing that I thought of was, okay, I'm going to put the handle on my wheel and try to rotate without turning one wheel,
Keep that wheel stationary.
and yeah, keeping that wheel stationary so that I can turn towards the sink. And I think you know where this is going. That didn't work out at
The
all.
floor was much cleaner.
The floor was
After you got it all cleaned up.
well, okay, so I thought about putting it on the floor, but I have like laminate
Oh
flooring,
no.
right? And like it's not like stone or anything like that. And I was scared that if I put it on the ground, it would melt that.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to do that either. And so when I put it on the wheel and I tried to turn, it obviously fell. There's boiling water that hit the side of my body, and it didn't give me like anything crazy or anything like that. Fell all over the floor, and then at that point I'm like, okay, and then I just put it on the ground, went over to the like was able to turn in a proper way to be able to put the pasta, and I don't think I lost much of the pasta along the way either. So
Mission accomplished. There you
yeah,
go.
yeah. But anyway, that was a fun time. I'm sure if I had like a more of an adaptive kitchen, I wouldn't have
Yeah.
had to deal with that, or just been maybe smarter with how to adapt.
Well, one of the things that we started off with in our classes was having either a cutting board or I bought like trays, like weight staff use
Yeah,
that have the little bit of a grippy surface to
yeah,
it. You
yeah,
can
yeah.
have on your lap to hold things on.
Yeah. Yeah, my buddy also has, like, scarring on he's paralyzed from the waist down. He has scarring on his like, his thigh because when he was first injured, he forgot that he couldn't feel his legs and just put a boiling pot,
Ooh,
like, on his legs, and
Mm.
yeah, he got, like, I don't know, I think they're probably third-degree burns because he's still scarring years and
Ugh.
years later, so
yeah.
Awful.
yeah, interesting. Anyway, anything else about adaptive cooking and the nonprofit Bolt Strong?
Well, we do adapted gardening classes as well,
That's right.
with the kids, and so we've got beds out in front of the shop, and then around the shop we have herbs and things, and for people who can get into the field, we can collect things there. So during the summer, during the produce time, we often do a full kind of farm to table
Cool.
experience. So you can go harvest and do this, and within our classes, we also have a sensory area.
Mm.
So we have a sensory pod rocker from May We Help. That was designed for kids with autism, so that they could have if they have a sensory issue, they can go in and it rocks, and it's sound dampening and light dampening,
Uh,
and it's really helped a lot because for kids or adults, it's like, look, if you get overwhelmed, go ahead, it's right
yeah.
here, self regulate, and so that's been helpful. So we have a variety of tools that augment the cooking experience too. If somebody's overwhelmed and they want to go outside and weed,
Mm,
there's those beds you can work in.
cool.
The other thing that I want to start doing is working with people for how to do gardening in small spaces.
Oh.
Like, let's say, you want to have certain things that
Mhm.
you can have at home. How can you garden in a small space? Well, maybe you can have one of these small raised beds, and you can roll under, and you can have a tomato plant and a pepper plant, whatever there, or you just have an herb garden on your shelf,
Yeah.
or something. How can you do these in small spaces? Because there is a certain element of joy in picking something and using it right
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
and
So cool to do that.
Mhm.
and we see that because we also with our classes, we do try to introduce new foods to
Uh-huh.
people, and it's fun with especially the kids classes when parents like, my kid will never eat that, they don't eat that, and she's like, just leave it be, leave it be, because when a kid has agency, and decision-making ability and what
Yeah.
they're eating, like what they're putting on this pizza or this vegetable tart or in this salad,
Yeah.
they eat it.
Interesting.
And when I mean, it's brilliant.
Mm, cool. So how so the adaptive gardening, you have raised garden beds. I'm sure you have like some areas maybe that are more soil based, and then some areas that are like, asphalt based to where you can get to the garden and stuff like that. Is
Yeah.
that kind of
Yeah, so we have
picture?
so we have roll under beds
Yeah.
as well as raised beds that are
Okay.
slightly raised, and then we have just, concrete level
Yeah.
The
beds that we
raised
work
ones,
with.
you have to kind of work from the side if you're in a wheelchair, because you can't roll up under them. But
Yeah.
we do
Yeah.
have some that are just like a desk that you roll up to, and it's got soil that then it's shallow in the front, and then it dives deeper at the back.
Mhm.
Cool.
And then we have tools with different hand grips based on what what issues you may or may not have. And I'll be honest, these alternate hand grip tools,
Yeah.
I like them better than the regular ones. I
Yeah.
find them much easier. And then there's tools that you get that you think this will be cool, and it's a failure.
Uh,
So, but just trying different things and letting people have that chance
yeah.
to try it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you just got to get dirty.
Interesting. Cool. Um, yeah, okay. I don't think I have any other questions about the nonprofit or any as far as the gardening, you do classes for that as well, or?
They're not separate classes. We roll it
Oh.
into, well, that's not true. We roll it into the cooking classes as it allows when we have stuff coming, ready to harvest in the field.
Mhm.
We also roll it in early in the season. They do planting. They'll often she'll do this thing where you get a bean with wet paper towel in a jar and you watch it
That's what we did
sprout.
with our Be Well
Right.
program.
Okay.
But most of the planting I was going to say was with the Be Well program with children's. And
Yeah.
so, and then a lot of those students, even though the Be Well program was not held at our farm, a lot of them came over to our programs from Be Well after learning about it. And then we have done at least one Be Well event at the farm.
Yeah, and we're trying to work out the details for that for this season because the host facility for the gardening program last year wants to go a different direction. So we're trying to figure out how we can still make that work for Be Well and the kids that have come to the programming.
Yeah.
The obvious easy solution is to do it at the farm, but our
Uh-huh.
farm, as we've kind of mentioned, isn't always accessible geographically to all these families.
Loveland is a hike.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but what I would like to do is have more opportunity for people to come in and, you know, plant some seed trays and grow their own seedlings and then transfer it to a pot.
Yeah.
Teaching people how to have, you know, when we lived in Madeira, I did everything on our driveway in a pot because it
Cool.
was the only place that got sun.
Mm.
So there's ways to do that, and so having
Yeah.
people do that. So I think that maybe adding some of that, we might do that this year.
Yeah.
Just add a separate class, and we live on the farm,
Yeah.
so if somebody wants to come out and see things,
Yeah.
just text me,
Yeah.
email. I mean, most of the time, as long as there's nothing else going on, it's okay.
Sure. Cool. Um, okay. Anything else about the nonprofit?
If you want to donate, you're welcome to.
Yeah. Go to their website.
There's a website, and there's a
Link below.
yeah, there's a link there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Real quick, as far as farming goes, I think you alluded to this. Do you do regenerative farming?
A lot of what we do is geared toward regenerative.
Mm.
What we're trying to do right now is restore the property to a biodiverse ecosystem.
Okay.
So we don't use pesticides or herbicides. We rely on things like co-cropping, um, predator insects, uh,
Nematodes.
nematodes in the soil, cover crops to get the soil to. I would love to get to a no-till,
Okay.
but we're not there yet.
Yeah.
So we leave our native plants like ironweed and butterfly weed. What is it?
Milkweed.
Milkweed and goldenrod. Those things, because those attract our pollinators. My best employees are the spiders and the snakes.
Yeah.
They keep the squatters down. Just recognizing that everything in this ecosystem has a role to play.
Right. Right.
So and maximizing that. Like we had a wasp nest in a tree that was probably 40 feet off the ground, and a lot of people are, you got to get rid of that. And it's like, no, those are very, very valuable to the
Mm.
farm because they take care of decaying matter. They're carrion feeders. They also pollinate. There's everything has its role.
Right.
And so
Except ticks.
they feed the possums and the chickens.
Okay, they have a purpose.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Well, I'm gonna move on to the disability segment unless you guys have
Yeah,
more stuff. Okay, so we kind of talked about like the poverty trap. We talked a little bit about Medicaid and insurance and how that traps you. Um, Let me know if you have anything else to add, but I wanted to ask about the word handicap. That's something. So there's two words that I've had discussions on my podcast about. One is the word handicap. Two is the word individual with disability. And I'm curious what your takes are on using those words and all that.
So I'll go first, I guess. I personally don't usually take offense at any of the words.
Yeah.
Handicap would be the closest.
Yep.
Actually, cripple would be the closest, I suppose.
Cripple. Yeah.
But if I use a word, I try to use person coping with a disability,
Yeah.
living with a disability.
Mm-hmm.
I try to even shy away from disabled person
Mm.
because I don't want to inadvertently equate the person with the disability.
Yeah.
Because it's like equating them with their hair.
Yeah.
It's not fair. So, yeah, like I said, I try to veer toward that side of things only out of trying to be as sensitive as I can. But
Mhm.
myself, I'm not overly sensitive about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to have an annual party we called Gimp Fest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the only rule is you had to have at least 5 wheelchairs before you could call it Gimp Fest.
That's awesome. Yeah. Interesting. What about you?
Well, so there's a term that's in other countries where they refer to handicapped, disabled people as people of determination. And I like that.
That's
Yeah.
But
the airport in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah. Interesting.
The
But-
light, the sign for the. Says,
I tend to, I will tend to say, someone with a disability, or like, my husband, Eric, who has paraplegia,
Mm.
that kind of a thing. But I take the cue from the person
Mm.
more than anything.
Mm.
It's like, how do you identify that you want me to
Yeah.
do that?
Mm-hmm.
And again, I often don't look at, when people register for class, I often, especially in kids classes, don't look at what their diagnosis is,
Mm.
because that way I find I can meet somebody where they're at for who they are.
Right.
I don't have some kind of preconceived notion.
Right. Yeah.
And I find that works very well
Mm.
with kids who might be on the spectrum,
Yeah.
because that's really helpful for me not to necessarily have a prejudged
Right.
idea of that. But again, I try to look at it person first
Yeah.
and meet their needs. I don't take offense at any of the terms, but I'm also not disabled.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, the only one I tend to tell people to avoid is this, confined to a wheelchair, wheelchair bound.
That's a
I
good
do
call.
not like either of those.
And
That's a
I
good point.
say to people, I'm like, I understand that this is the way this has been referred to for a long time, that kind of thing. But for somebody who can't walk,
Mm-hmm.
that wheelchair is a means of experiencing life.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of
And-
the most important things in their life.
Yeah.
It's not something you're bound to.
It's not
something that
limiting.
frees them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a
And-
freeing technology, not a. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. I've always said I used crutches up until 5th grade, and it put I had a surgery, and it put me in a wheelchair for a couple weeks, and I realized that I could carry my own lunch tray and do all that thing, all that, and it's like I am more independent using a
Mhm.
wheelchair than I ever would have been being on crutches,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and it's you're right. So my general take is I I don't mind handicap. I don't mind disability. I as far as person first terminology, like individual with a disability, I like the sentiment of it, but individual with a disability is a mouthful, and I just don't like that terminology. Just because it's like I don't know. It's almost like everybody knows what you mean when you say that that person's individual. I'm disabled disability, stuff like that. And I don't know, maybe that's an insensitive take, but most people that I've had on my podcast that I've had this discussion with do not care about disability, handicap, all
Mhm.
that. There are certain people that have, but then one of the interesting things that I've been thinking a lot about is like if someone does care, yes, I think it's important to be sensitive to that, but also maybe that person needs to do some work on themselves about why they care so much about somebody else using that terminology.
Well, and they may be still going through their grieving period.
Yes,
And
so
that
true.
I don't know where they're coming. I guess I don't know where they're coming from, where they were,
Yeah,
where they're going. So it doesn't hurt me to say what you need.
right. So true.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think a lot of times when you find somebody 10, 15, 20 years past an acquired disability who's really sensitive about terminology, it's probably because they're still in their grieving period.
Mhm.
They have not
Yeah.
let go of their old life.
Yeah.
I'm not disabled, GD.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm who I always been.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I agree, and it's you don't know where someone is at in
Right.
that grieving period,
Right.
and
And you also don't know what insults, what barriers, what things they're facing.
yeah,
And so, there's been times in my life where I dug in on, darn it, I'm this,
yeah,
because there were so many things pushing against that. So
yeah,
I just don't know where they're coming from. So I'm gonna again, it doesn't hurt me
yeah,
to do what they need.
yeah,
So I'll do that.
yeah. I also think it seems like terminology for various things changes so much. Like
Yeah.
10 years ago, we were using handicap, handicap
Hmm.
accessible bathrooms and handicap parking, and there's all these words that or these phrases that stuck around from 10, 15,
Hmm.
20 years ago or more, and these terminologies keep changing. And quite frankly, it wasn't until I started this podcast that I realized s- the word handicap is frowned upon by some people. And it's like, if I a 41-year-old person with spina bifida, I've had this all my life, didn't know that. How can we expect an able-bodied person to do
It,
to know that?
it would be really interesting to do a poll or whatever it takes to see if it's actually able-bodied people who are more offended by handicap.
I bet they
I
are.
would wager it is.
I would too. Yeah. And it's like people being offended on our behalf,
I
and
mean,
it's like we don't need that.
do I have time to be offended by that?
No,
Really? I mean,
yeah,
come on.
yeah. And the other thought process is like, I mean, we've outlined so many issues in the disabled community that we could be working on. And here we are like
Terminology.
discussing terminology instead of discussing the problems that or the solutions to the problems that
Yep.
stuff like that. So it
Distraction.
and go ahead.
Well, I was just say what one way I decide is, especially if I'm writing a grant, it depends on if it's character driven, word driven, or whatever space I have.
Yeah.
So if it's characters, you're a disabled person.
Yeah,
You know, if I have all the space in the world, you're a person with a
yeah.
disability.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Interesting.
it's
Abby actually mentioned that in grant writing, she uses individual with a disability, and I'm like, okay, like I can see a space for using that word, but in everyday talk, it's like no, just call me disabled.
I would. I'm going to validate that theory of yours because what I would say is that in the grant space, a lot of the people who are at the top of these things, giving out grants and whatnot, they're very sensitive to a lot of
Yeah,
terminologies.
yeah, yeah.
And they know them better than I do.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I'm using the wrong words, and I'm the disabled person,
Right.
right? And I think it's well intended. I really do. I think they're trying to make the world better for people with disabilities,
Yes.
but they're focusing maybe on things that are easier to talk about and don't need funding,
Yeah.
whereas the real problems need funding.
Right. Yeah, that's a good call. I think the last point that I'll make on this is with the ever changing words and expecting someone who expects an able-bodied person who might not be in that world to use that terminology, I think it is alienating the disabled community. Because if I am someone that's not used to being around somebody that's disabled, and I know that there's certain terminology that I have to stay away from, I'm just gonna stay away from that person
Mm.
altogether. And I don't know, it just bothers me how we're so held up or we're so focused on like what words to use. And the other thing is like as these words change, it's like I think the purpose is like to try to fix the stereotype for the individual with a disability, right? Like i- in 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 those stereotypes follow because we haven't squashed that stereotype.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on something really important. Is that focusing on terminology actually makes it harder to see the person.
Yeah.
And the important thing is seeing the person. And if you want people to see you and remember you and to start adapting to disabled people in their space,
Mhm.
you want to make those experiences memorable and pleasant.
Yes.
And being a word police person doesn't do that.
No.
Telling them something that excites you, that changes their attitude about you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I totally
100%.
agree with you.
Yeah.
Being Policing words people use just alienates and makes it hard for them to see that you actually are a person and have value.
Mhm. Yeah. So then
Yeah,
go ahead.
nobody's gonna, you know, be all excited about something when you make them feel bad about themselves for
Yep.
Yeah.
interacting. So what Eric said, making those interactions pleasant. I mean, I love when we have new volunteers come in to one of the classes, because many of them have never really worked with anybody with any disability,
Yeah.
and then they come in and you know, they find this to be a very pleasant experience, and they leave wanting to do it again
Yeah.
because nobody made them feel bad about themselves.
Mhm. So here's the catch 22. Going back to we need to be sensitive to people who maybe aren't over who
Mhm.
haven't who aren't mentally over their disability or maybe new injuries who are still coping with it. And like what is that person to do when they hear or they get offended by somebody who is using the language that they don't want them to use, right?
That's a tougher one because again, they're in a state of suffering at this point.
Yeah.
And so just like the wounded animal that bites you,
Mm,
they may not have full ability to not lash out because
yeah.
they're still angry and they're still hurting and they're
Yeah.
suffering.
Yeah.
So what they could do is maybe, take a step back and realize that person wasn't trying to hurt you.
Right.
That person wants to get to know you.
Mhm.
But it's hard because I know like when I'm upset or I'm angry or something, hands out, man, I don't want you near me. I'm gonna push you away as hard as I can.
Yeah.
And I think that if you are in that state of suffering or you're in any kind of emotional or mental or physical pain, it's harder for that person to do it.
Mm.
It's easier for me to say, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. Would you prefer this?"
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good
Y-
call.
And there's also, I don't know, back to my silly analogies, but if you see somebody who's really out of shape coming back to the gym, right?
Mm,
Telling them everything they're doing wrong is not the right approach. Building a rapport with them, telling them great job,
yeah.
gives you the opportunity to get close enough to then say, hey, if you did it this way, it'd be safer,
Yeah.
right? It's the same kind of thing.
Great
It's about
analogy.
pragmatism, right? I
Mhm.
want to get to where I'm going, and alienating this person isn't going to help anybody.
Mhm.
But there are steps I can take where I can affect that person. I'm willing to invest in it.
Yeah. That is well said. Um, okay, any other disabled, like, kinda broader disabled topics that you would like to hit on that we haven't already?
I would just like to advise people who work at host or hostess stands in restaurants to please talk to the person who comes up to the podium first.
Mm,
Don't look over them and ask their wife or their husband or their friend
mm,
how many people.
yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think we've all experienced that. Like
Mhm.
they only look at the able-bodied person. It's like, "Hey, I'm here." Like, I started talking to you. What are you doing?"
But there's a real there's an eye aversion is a symptom of not knowing how to handle a situation,
Mhm.
right? They've never been taught to
Yeah.
treat people with disabilities like people,
Yeah.
right? And so it gets back to that same thing, you know,
Mhm.
s- calling it handicapped, same thing. You know, if you can build the rapport and at some point nudge them in the right direction.
Mhm.
But yeah, just look at the guy in the wheelchair next time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, when we're out doing things, if a especially children are very curious.
Mhm.
Younger children are very curious about this chair. And you know, if we see a kid looking at it, we're like, do you have any questions?
Yeah.
Do you want to touch it? And
Mhm.
remember the little girl at Montgomery Farmers Market? So last year we did Montgomery Farmers Market, and there was this little girl, I don't know if she was 2 or 3, but she loved his chair. And
Yeah.
she came to see his chair every time they were at the market.
It has hazard lights.
And it goes up and down and but the thing is, I guarantee you, she's not going to be afraid of somebody in a wheelchair
Right.
now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think back to when you were first in a wheelchair with his manual chair. We had to take the canes, the handlebars off the back because his mom was still alive.
Mm.
And we would go to dinner with her, and she would insist on pushing his wheelchair like a grocery cart.
Oh.
Like, I mean,
And if
we
she
go in an elevator and she just shove him in the corner.
It's not like I need anyone pushing it, you know.
But, you know, it was like that was one of those times where it's, you know, and it's weird. It's like, yeah, I guess for able-bodied people too, do not, and I've done this by the way with him, do not assume that you have the right to touch somebody's wheelchair,
Yeah.
to drive their chair, to move their chair,
Mhm.
to stand on their foot plate.
100%.
You know, that's the same as, you know, physically touching someone. And I've had to learn that too at times.
Yeah.
The last disability thing I'll add is one that I often repeat because I think people don't have it in mind most of the time, and that is that you know the average able-bodied person doesn't give 2 seconds thought to anything about disability until they become disabled, of course.
Yeah.
So what you have to understand as an able-bodied person is that disabled people are the largest marginalized group in the world by far.
Yep.
They're the most intersectional, every walk of life,
Mhm.
and you could join us at any moment. We
Mhm.
are an equal opportunity club.
Mhm.
And so I wish people would keep that in mind more when they're parking the hash marks. Keep that
Mhm.
in mind when they're doing risky things,
Yeah.
because you may one day be part of us and you may regret the fact that you didn't think about, you know, prioritizing this group and their needs when you join us. That's all.
Yeah.
It's you know, I didn't know anything about disability before I was paralyzed, and I
Mhm.
know that I averted my eyes from people in wheelchairs. Now, I did make one friendship with a young woman. I should say a girl. She wasn't an adult yet. I knew her parents, but she had a terminal illness, and she used a power chair, and she was years more mature than I was at the time.
Mm.
Just like Abby, who was years younger than I was my mentor in disability because she'd been in it for 2 years longer.
Mhm.
You know, we're unseen, but we're all around you, and you could be part of us. So just keep that in mind, is what I would say.
Yeah.
And we can assure you that there's a lot of stuff that came with paralysis that was not in the manual. We might not have signed up for it had
Yeah.
we read the real manual instead of the one they gave us.
Yeah. Ugh.
There's all kinds of things. So again, as an able-bodied person, you don't know what that person had to get through this morning to get there.
Yeah.
Just know that uh, if it takes me 10 minutes to get out the door, it might take Eric an hour.
Yeah.
There's a lot more
You know,
to it.
you've probably dealt with this. I often think about writing more about disability and what it's like going through spinal cord injury and all the things that come along with some spinal cord injuries. But there's a part of me that thinks that that knowledge would make us more alien
Mm.
to able-bodied people.
Mm.
That they would look at us, oh my God, that person had to do that.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
Because it's almost incomprehensible when
It-
you first learn what you're going to have to do. That, oh my
Yeah.
God. And then to communicate that to an able-bodied person, I'm past, you know, humility and all that and shame. I don't care. I can tell
Yeah.
them anything. But it's like, is it going to change people's attitudes? Like, you know, I already know that if I tell a potential employer that I have this disability, my chances of getting employed have just plummeted.
Right.
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 If I told them what a neurogenic bowel program was,
Right.
they would never want to see me again. You
Yeah.
know? And so
For the
it's
viewers that don't know, no, I'm just kidding.
But it's something to grapple with. Like, it's like I want to educate people, but
Yeah,
only so much
right,
because you can't handle the truth, as Jack said, "A few good men," or whatever that
right.
movie.
I totally agree with that, and again, that's another reason why I think just being in the disability space and like being around others who have disabilities that do go through the same stuff. That's so important.
Well, during a class, we'll have, you know, I'm the odd person out because they might start talking about different catheters or different doctors for this or different this.
How
But
to deal with a pressure wound,
but
whatever.
but that's the gift of that community.
Mhm.
That is absolutely the gift of that community. I mean, we left there's a spinal cord support group here in town called Bright Sides, and we went to a Bright Sides meeting, and the catheter salespeople were there showing samples. And we leave to go to the car and get in the car and say, those were some really cool catheters. And then it dawned on me, I'm like, never before did I ever think in our married life I would say, that's a cool catheter.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, wow, things have changed.
But you tap into a really big thing, and that is, I think a lot of the failure to move on, get through grieving, to accept what's happened, and to start your new life. Sorry, what was I saying?
To accept your new life, to get through the grieving.
I think where you were going with that was something about like to get through it, you need to be around the disabled
Yeah,
community.
thank you, thank you. Yeah, we were talking about I think there's with acquired disability. I know personally, there's a very much. I don't need to be part of the disabled community. I'm a cyclist.
Yeah.
I'm going to hang out with my cyclist friends. I'll learn to ride a hand cycle.
Uh-huh.
There's kind of like there's almost an ick factor of admitting you're part of that class.
Yeah.
And that's a huge part of moving on is you
Yeah.
are part of this class.
Yep.
You don't have your old life.
Mhm.
You do need to rebuild. There's a story I tell, and this really happened. A guy, an ultra cyclist. This is somebody who rides insane amounts of miles on a bicycle.
Mhm.
An ultra cyclist who'd won the race across America, which is literally a race across the entire United States. He ran it. He won it in the single category, which is a self-supported race twice.
Mhm.
Serious cyclist, and he was paralyzed about a year after I was. Maybe it was 6 months. I can't remember. But Danny is on the spectrum.
Mm.
Back in the day when they gave diagnoses of the different parts of the spectrum, he was diagnosed as Asperger's.
Mm.
But very bright guy, very mathematically oriented. He puts on a race actually in Pittsburgh every year called the Dirty Dozen, which is 12 big hills. But Danny really struggled with paralysis because he was about the bike all the time, very focused guy. He was determined to ride 1,000,000 miles before he died.
Mm.
And he would call me and he would say, if this happens to a horse, we just kill him. We put him out of their misery. Why do we have to go on? And he would be in these very dark places. And one day, I don't know why it happened, but it just hit me to describe it to him as, well, Dan, do you think of it this way? Throughout your life, you worked hard, you educated, you cut down these trees and you built yourself a log cabin. Then you carved out the insides flat and you decorated them, you painted them, you built the furniture, you put curtains on, and it burned down.
Mm.
It's gone. You got to start over.
Mhm.
And that was the last time he ever called me dark like that.
Wow. Cool. That's
But it's true.
yeah.
Holding on to the old life is just baggage.
Yeah.
There's memories that are great to have, but I mean, I quite honestly, I still get depressed when I watch a bike race.
Mm.
When I watch people dance, I get a little
Mhm.
depressed.
Mhm.
That's an old life.
Yeah. Mm. That's a great analogy, and it's an analogy that I don't think just applies to disability.
No, I don't either.
It's so vast.
It's loss, right?
Yeah.
The loss of a child, the loss of a spouse.
Mhm.
The
All
loss of a marriage.
any deep grief kind of falls in
Yeah.
that category. I
Yeah.
think.
Well, I mean, even I was thinking about like how much I cherish my college days and how much just living in a dorm, how much you bonded with people, and like there's no other area to be able to bond like that. I've definitely looked back at that time of like
Oh yeah.
wow, that's a cool analogy. Well, we're coming to the end. We're at 3 hours 17 minutes, so
Clearly, we can talk a dog off a meat wagon.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I guess a couple closing questions. What's one thing you hope people get out of this episode?
I hope they get hope.
Hope. I love that.
If I could choose something for people to get out of it, it would be the knowledge that you gain far more from reaching out and helping others than you lose.
Yeah.
This is the only thing that keeps me going is helping others, you know?
Mm,
So it's worth it.
love that. Is there anything else from everything we talked about, something we didn't talk about that you're like, I really want to make sure that we cover this before we end?
I think we've covered a lot.
Nah, I think we should go another 3 hours.
Well, I guess again, going back to that, is there something I want some people to take from this is if you can create a safe space community for whoever
Mm,
matters to you, for whoever is in your life, that's going to give back
yeah,
so much more. I
yeah.
mean, when I think about the the safety that people feel when they come into our facility, the community that they're growing,
Mm,
the skills that they're leaving with, the confidence that they're building, the we have people who, do the 10K flying pig on a hand cycle now, or who are adapted athletes, or who are, you know, teaching things, or doing their own podcasts. They've taken this little kernel from a cooking class when
mhm,
they learned how to do something and made friends and built upon that to do more.
mhm.
So I think that any opportunity you have to create community is beneficial, and that community can be for everybody. And I think able-bodied people need to understand that we're not the only ones that get community.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. That's well said. Anything else that you want to make sure you talk about? We can always do a part two if you guys ever want down the
I
road.
mean, just kind of the tail of that off is what it comes down to. I think for both of us, definitely comes down to for me is as I get older with the disability and everything, I don't think in terms of the same scales and black and whites that I used to.
Yeah.
I don't think politics the way I thought of politics or uh, historical issues. Everything in my life comes down being cast in terms of really is it kindness? Is it cruelty or is it indifference, which is the same same darn thing as
Mm,
as cruelty. And if we all look at our own lives and say, am I doing this out of kindness, indifference, or cruelty?
mm,
That we can change the world.
mm. Love that. Well, you mentioned this earlier on in the podcast, but where can people find you?
They can find us at our website, which is boltztonuts.com, which is BOLTZ, the number two, NUTZ.com, or Boltstrong, BOLTZSTRONG.org.
Cool. And then socials?
Socials is at Boltz Strong Nonprofit and at Boltz to Nuts Farm.
Cool.
And if you find one, it'll usually lead to the other one.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that's where the rabbit hole from Instagram. That's where I
So,
found your websites and with your farm stuff and cooking and all that. So
and I would say, please, if you are disabled, if you know someone who is disabled, if you know someone who's struggling, some disabilities are invisible, encourage them to come out.
yeah, yeah, I love that.
We left out there's actually, is it still on there? We used to have a quote on the website. It might still be there, but we changed websites and it's long
Solid
story.
ground.
Yeah, I mean, there's a line from a Sarah Bareilles song called Orpheus that goes that I hope if the bottom falls out, my love with someone else is solid ground.
Uh,
And that's really the sentiment where we built this from
yeah,
is we want to be solid ground.
love that. Wow. Well, yeah. So like not meeting you, yeah, either of you ever. This has been such a wonderful podcast. You guys are doing some awesome things with the farm and cooking and the nonprofit, and uh, it was such a cool conversation. And I hope everybody um, gets out of it, a lesson in I don't know. I don't even want to define it. Like they can take on their own lessons, and I love the various conversations about, you know, the disability nuances, and I definitely want to come out and check it out myself, and maybe get some video if you guys will allow me, and put it
Absolutely.
on my channel
Absolutely.
and
Hey,
do all that.
a
So.
week from tomorrow, we've got an adult class. You should come out and cook with us.
Okay. I need to double check my schedule, but I think that should be potentially okay. I don't want to commit to that yet, but
We have
maybe
it once
after
a
the
month, so we're
podcast I
good.
can. Okay. After the podcast I can do that. But yeah, when this episode does air, I'd love to maybe put out some of that as well. So, but
Thank
yeah,
you for the opportunity to be here. We
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
appreciate it.
yeah, it's been a blast. I really appreciate the time. So, anything else? Final words. Okay.
No, I'm good.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining the Rolling Forward podcast. If you like what you heard, hit that like button, leave a comment. I want to hear what keeps you rolling forward, or something on this episode that stuck out with you. Maybe something new that you learned, because I certainly learned a lot of new things. And if you want to get a shirt like this, it says, "You know what I can't, you know what I can't stand." You know what? I can't stand. Punctuation matters. And if you want to get this, you can get this on rollingforward.printful.me, and there's a whole bunch of other shirts on there that you can pick up and buy on the store. And if you have a story worth sharing that fits the theme of what we're doing here, reach out. I'd love to talk about potentially exploring you being on the podcast. So until next time, keep rolling forward.